Chapter 113. Qiao Jin saw a group of people kneeling in the room. 5 people. There were many people that night. Qiao Jin's memory was vague, but seeing these people, her memory became clear. Qiao Jin still remembered how she was tricked into going in that night. At first, she just went in to have fun. When she saw so many strange men, she was a little scared. Even if Qiao Jin had a bad reputation in the past 6 months, it was just an accident. No matter how bad she was, she wouldn't be completely depraved. When she met Tan Xuejia, she was gradually brainwashing her and taking her to relax. This was just an opportunity. No matter what, Qiao Jin's real consciousness would return. That night, Tan Xuejia forced her to drink glass after glass. She couldn't hold her liquor and was already drunk. Her arm was still a little cold and tingling. Someone injected something into her wrist and she instinctively felt scared. She groggily found an excuse to escape. Tan Xuejia and the others didn't want to let her go. At that time, there were several playboys. Their purpose was obvious. However, when they escaped from the bar, Tan Xuejia and the others encountered the patrolling armed police as soon as they came out. They didn't know what happened during that period of time, but they were very strict. Tan Xuejia and the others didn't want to cause any trouble. Moreover, Qiao Jin had already escaped, so they were too lazy to care about her and left her outside. In fact, it was reasonable to say that she couldn't escape. After all, she had been injected with drugs. It was conceivable that she would suffer more serious abuse. Maybe it was just a little bit of fate. She returned home in a daze. Halfway through, she woke up because of the drug addiction. At that time, she realized what had happened. A young girl only had panic. She was frightened at first. Coupled with the drug addiction and what had happened to her, she chose to commit suicide in fear and despair. In this position, it was hard to say what the Mu family did wrong. Qiao Fei raised her for 20 years and had never wronged her. The house she lived in was bought by Mu Zhenming. It was natural that she was not allowed to go back to the Mu family. After all, she was not Qiao Fei's biological daughter. In the past, she was just a kind consciousness. Now, she was a kind consciousness. Seeing the people kneeling on the floor in the private room, she actually smiled. The young masters were beaten black and blue. Their usual arrogance was gone. When they saw Qiao Jin, they all cried like grandsons. "Miss Qiao, I'm sorry. It's our fault. We didn't know you were young Master Mu's sister. We're really sorry. We didn't do it on purpose. That Tan guy instigated us. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." The few of them wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves. All of them looked at Qiao Jin, wishing they could kowtow to her and beg for mercy. Musilian was a little impatient. He stretched out his leg and kicked one of them to the ground. "You still have the nerve to blame it on a dead person. You guys have no sense of propriety. You just casually injected drugs into people." That person howled in pain. His body was already injured, and now he was in so much pain that his entire body trembled. Qiao Jin suddenly looked at Musilian and said, "Tan Xuejia told me that you asked her to play with me." "Who?" Mu Qilian was stunned, then suddenly reacted, "Fuck, she's fucking crazy. How could we do such a thing?" Qiao Jin shook her head. "I didn't believe it." Musilian realized something was wrong. "You didn't really believe it at that time, did you?" Chapter 114. Qiao Jin didn't say anything. In fact, it didn't matter if she had been wronged in the past or not. After all, it was her fault. Now, she would take revenge on those who deserved it. However, she didn't expect Musilian and the others to help her. Young people nowadays were really complicated. They didn't call her Tan Xuejia, but they didn't like Qiao Jin. Otherwise, Qiao Fei would have brought Qiao Jin back. Musilian saw Qiao Jin's expression and his face immediately darkened. Upon closer inspection, there was a flicker in his eyes. He was guilty. Yes, when Qiao Fei came back, he said that he wanted Qiao Jin to come back. His opinion was the most important. At that time, he didn't know so much. His mother hadn't seen anyone for 20 years. When they were born, they didn't even have an impression of their mother. They hadn't enjoyed their mother's love for 20 years. All the love was given to a sister who wasn't related to them by blood. Naturally, he had a strong opinion. However, he couldn't do anything too outrageous. They also knew that Xiao Fei didn't bring back Xiao Jin and bought a house in the capital to raise Xiao Jin. They also knew that when they visited him often, didn't they also turn a blind eye to it? His brother didn't necessarily have the same thoughts as him, but he also cared about his feelings and didn't suggest bringing Xiao Jin back. After that, Xiao Fei nagged them every day. It was natural that he was upset. Later, when he found out about Xiao Jin's accident, he also had some doubts in his heart. When he returned home and saw Xiao Jin's appearance, he only felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. There were only 3 brothers in the Mu family. They didn't have a sister. Although their mother loved them dearly, they were all grown-ups and had the basic ability to distinguish between right and wrong. It was their grandfather's fault that their mother left home. It wasn't worthwhile to put the blame on a girl who didn't know anything. However, now that Xiao Jin said something, Muzilian's mind was about to explode. They asked Tan Xuejia to bring Xiao Jin to play? In other words, were they to blame for Xiao Jin's suicide? This was a serious matter. Xiao Jin thought about it carefully. I was too naive back then. She couldn't always put the blame on others. At that time, Xiao Jin actually wanted to get the approval of the Mu family. Tan Xuejia said that her brothers invited her to play with her, so she believed it. Otherwise, how could Xiao Jin hang out with someone like Tan Xuejia? In short, he had suffered a loss due to his lack of scheming. Then, when Xiao Jin awakened and received the entire story, a complete chain of logic was formed. Well, if it wasn't for the fact that she didn't see the death aura on Muzilian and Muzichu, she would have realized that something was wrong. She could use her ability to know other people's fate, but it was the hardest to calculate her own fate. The entire private room was dead silent. If Muzilian hadn't brought her here today, he wouldn't have known that he had taken such a big blame. No wonder she didn't like them and wouldn't even call them brother. Oh, it was mainly because her brain wasn't very good. Mu Chilian hated the people in front of him even more. He kicked 2 more people. It's all because of these bastards. They were smart. After hearing that the Mu family had a daughter for no reason, they found out about Xiao Jin's identity. They were so shocked that they changed the surveillance cameras. They wouldn't have waited until now to find out. Those people were crying and screaming, and now they were beaten up badly. Xiao Jin glanced at them. You don't have to do this. The death aura on her body was so strong. If they were tainted by her karma, their family would be in big trouble. If Muzilian got into trouble because of beating them up, there was no need to do this. Chapter 115. The other party had some power too. Now that something had happened and their family was in trouble, it would be troublesome for them to work together to target the Mu family. Muzilian thought that she couldn't bear to see these people and turned to look at her. He said indignantly, "They made you take drugs and you think you're going to let it go just like that? You're really a saint." Xiao Jin, one of the people on the ground, was indeed angry from the kick. Mu, this is our fault, but don't go overboard. Your sister is fine now. Don't think that the Lan family is afraid of you. If you say she's fine, then she's fine. Now, she has to go to the hospital twice a month for checkups. Even her brain is damaged. You tell me if she's fine or not. Muzilian was angry and vented his anger on them. Come and hit me if you're not convinced, you bastards. He was used to being wild outside since he was young. He was the little prince of the nightclub and had brute strength. Without his lackeys, these young masters who were drunk every day were no match for him in a fight. Moreover, Muzichu was outside too. One of them couldn't take the kick anymore. He suddenly stood up, picked up a wine bottle and threw it at Muzilian. It looked like he wanted to smash Muzilian open. Seeing that his blood was boiling, the others were also agitated. They stood up and wanted to beat Muzilian up. Muzilian wasn't afraid at all. He dodged that person's wine bottle and instantly got into a fight with them. Xiao Jin stood at the side of the private room like an audience. With a bang, the door of the private room was kicked open. Muzichu walked in with a cold face. He frowned and said, "She's still here. Why are you guys fighting again?" Although he said that, He didn't hesitate to kick people with his long legs. While Musilian attracted the fire, he quickly went to Qiao Jin and pushed him out. He said coldly, "Wait outside." Qiao Jin, oh. Qiao Jin kindly closed the door for them. The room was filled with screams. After the door was closed, the world was silent. Qiao Jin stood at the door and unexpectedly bumped into a few people. The leader was dressed in a black suit. He looked like a human, but his eyes were dull and gloomy. Even when they met his eyes, it was as if some cold-blooded animal had crawled over them. It was slippery and cold, giving people goosebumps. He had a cigarette in his mouth and a group of people followed behind him. Qiao Jin's private room was not far from the elevator. When the other party came out of the elevator, he saw Qiao Jin standing at the door and stopped. The man's gaze landed on Qiao Jin. The few people behind him had fearful and respectful expressions. When they saw him stop, they didn't dare say anything. They just followed his gaze and looked over in surprise. Qiao Jin was very calm. He even recognized the man at a glance. He should be the person he saw when he ate with Song Yanqing the other day. He was a young man with a tough life. He didn't know which rich young master he was. He couldn't see through him at a glance and couldn't be bothered to calculate for the time being. The man stared at him and his lips curled into a sinister smile. The smoke surged up, making his three-dimensional facial features a little blurry. His dark and gloomy eyes swept across Qiao Jin wantonly. Then, he revealed a slight sneer and strode away with large strides. Qiao Jin thought to herself that there were indeed quite a number of young people with mental problems these days. Chapter 116. After a while, the door of the private room opened. Musichu walked out first. Not surprisingly, Qiao Jin recognized them at a glance. In fact, Musichu's cold aura was far from his hot-tempered brother. The moment the door was opened, the smell of blood seemed to come out. It was impossible for there to be no blood at all. Musichu was not hot-blooded after the fight just now. He was still cold. Qi Lian shouldn't have brought you here. Qiao Jin smiled. Thank you for helping me vent my anger. Musichu seemed a little surprised. His eyes slowly moved away from her face. No need. Qiao Jin said again, I won't tell Feifei that you fought. Musilian came out of the door and cursed. Fuck, a bunch of bastards. How dare they provoke me when they don't have the ability? When he saw Qiao Jin, he deliberately said fiercely, I'll send you back quickly. If you don't go back after school, Big Brother will ask at home. It would not be good if this bunch of bastards came and saw Qiao Jin here. Since they had fought so hard, they would definitely deal with some things later. Qiao Jin probably knew what they would encounter, but he just smiled faintly. Okay. Musilian and Musichu were not really fearless. When the car was still on the road, Musilian received a call from Mu Junming, who was far away in Sakura Island. What did you do? Unexpectedly, Mu Junming's voice was very calm. Even if he knew what his son had done, he did not seem to blame him. Qiao Jin heard it loud and clear. So what if you hit her? Why did you bring her there? She is a little girl and has never experienced these things. What if she is traumatized? When Musilian answered the phone, he kept peeking at Qiao Jin from the rearview mirror. Even a fool knew that this call was related to him. At this moment, he said, It's fine. I think she's quite strong. Mu Junming. Before hanging up the phone, he scolded again, Don't you know how to act appropriately? Don't you know how to find a place with no one around? Obviously, he had some opinions about his troublesome son causing trouble for him in the country and preventing him from having a good vacation. After hanging up, Musilian said to Musichu, who was driving, Brother, they called Dad. Musichu snorted and said casually, We'll talk about it when we get back. When they arrived home, Mu Chiji was sitting on the sofa and reading a notebook. Upon seeing them return, he rubbed his glabella and asked sternly, What did you do? Obviously, he knew what had happened. After all, Mu Junming wasn't at home. If anything happened, he would definitely call his elder brother. Mu Chiji looked at Qiao Jin, who was standing behind him, and said, Qiao Jin, go back to your room. Qiao Jin didn't have any objections. However, when he walked to the front, he suddenly said earnestly, Chiji, they are still children. They don't know any better. Just teach them a lesson. Don't hit or scold them. He was like a doting elder. The three Mu brothers, Xiao Jin knew that Mu Chiji would at most teach the two brothers a lesson and wouldn't do anything to them. Thus, he walked into the house with relief. She calculated that those people would probably cause a few days of obstruction to the Mu family after they complained. However, it would only be harassment. After a few days, they wouldn't have the chance to harass the Mu family anymore. Chapter 117. After going upstairs, Xiao Jin went to the bathroom to fill the tub with water. She needed to take a bath. The poison in her body had not completely disappeared, but it had been suppressed in the deepest part of her body by her power. After taking a good bath today, her body would be completely healed. After a while, she changed her clothes and lay in the bathtub that was already filled with water. The bathtub was steaming hot, but the moment she entered, it instantly turned cold. A faint aura of death emitted from her body and dyed the water in the bathtub. The water suddenly became bone-chilling, but she sat down without changing her expression as if she did not feel it. She closed her eyes and immersed her entire body in the water, including her head. She was completely surrounded by the cold water and seemed to be silent. After about 10 minutes, she suddenly straightened up. The water poured down from her white jade-like body, and she was already soaked. She wiped her face and felt that she was in a much better state than before. The water had completely turned into ice water, and if it was an ordinary person, they would be frozen half to death just by being close to it. She clicked her tongue, the time was getting closer and closer, and she felt more threatened. It seemed that she had to go to Song Yanqing to get the aura of death. Anyway, it was almost time. After changing into a bathrobe and coming out of the bathtub, she heard the discussion about her downstairs like whispers. The three brothers of the Mu family had been discussing her, and those words sounded calm, but there was a faint hint of concern. Of course, there were also doubts. How did the poison in her body disappear? This was also troubling the Mu family. Could it be that Xiao Jin was so talented that he did not get addicted to drugs at all? She slowly curled her lips, and the beeping sounds on the computer sounded like crazy. She walked over and saw that there was a commotion at her fortune-telling shop. Anonymous buyer, hello, I want to have my fortune told. This time, the other party was not Lin Sai, but Xiao Jin felt that the other party was introduced by Lin Sai. Anonymous buyer, I don't know which one I should choose. Customer service today is for you. Today, choose your life package. The other party was silent for a long time before typing again. Anonymous buyer, how can you be sure that I want to have my life read? Today, kiss kiss, do you want to count? Anonymous buyer, to be honest, the customer service's attitude wasn't very good. On the other end of the phone, Zhao Rulan's expression suddenly became a little bad. Lin Sai, who was next to her, also heard their conversation and hurriedly said, Sister, don't take it to heart. That's how the master talks. He's really efficacious. You've seen our chat history. Why are you still hesitating? Just tell her what you want to know. Zhao Rulan was indeed a relative of the Lin family. However, they were not related by blood. Zhao Rulan was her godmother's daughter. Her godmother and her mother had been very close since they were young, but she had always lived abroad and rarely came back. However, when the two families met occasionally, they were also very close. This time, Zhao Rulan and her mother had returned to the country for a visit. Lin Sai was very happy to see her sister. In addition, she knew that she was going to get married soon and knew a little about her future brother-in-law. To be honest, Lin Sai was not very optimistic. Although the Zhao family lived abroad, Zhao Rulan's mother believed in the fortune-telling skills in China. Lin Sai urged Zhao Rulan to have her fortune told. It was a good thing to be able to bring business to the master. Chapter 118. Zhao Rulan's family background was not bad. She did not care about 599 yuan. Seeing that the other party asked her to choose a life package, she was a little hesitant. To be honest, even if she saw the chat history, a girl like her who had received a Western education from a young age did not believe it. However, she could not persuade Lin Sai. In addition, She was indeed a little curious, so she still ordered the life package. After placing the order, the customer service was very fast. Today, name, date of birth. Zhao Rulan was still a little hesitant about posting her information online. However, the other party quickly sent another sentence. Today, Chinese name. Zhao Rulan's body trembled when she saw this sentence. Lin Sai also said, "Look, I told you that this master is super awesome." Zhao Rulan was a foreigner. Her name was usually in English. She would only use the name Zhao Rulan when she returned to China. However, since she was in China now, there was no reason for the other party to specifically point this out. It could only mean that she knew that Zhao Rulan was Chinese. She knew about her general information through a phone. Zhao Rulan did not believe it. "She can see my background information, right?" Lin Sai said, "Sister, are you stupid? You're using my alternate account, okay?" Zhao Rulan, "Oh, this was Lin Sai's cat treasure account." Thinking of this, Zhao Rulan's heart skipped a beat. She still reported her name and date of birth. There was no reply from the customer service for about a minute. Lin Sai said, "Since you're calculating life, you must take a long time." Zhao Rulan did not believe in such things. "Although she's calculating my life, I don't believe that she can calculate anything for 600 yuan. It was not that her mother had not found a fortune teller before. Those high prices that could easily reach hundreds of thousands or millions could not convince her, let alone this kind of fortune teller." Unexpectedly, the customer service suddenly replied, "Today, don't get married." The cold words made Zhao Rulan feel cold from head to toe. She was indeed about to get married. Her husband's family background was not as good as hers. He was just an overseas student whose family had gathered all their resources to support him. However, he was good-looking and was very gentle and considerate to her. He even had common topics to talk about with her. Zhao Rulan thought that he was her true love. Even if her family objected and looked down on her husband's family background, she still argued for it and expressed that her husband's future was not bad. He would at least be an elite in the future and would not be inferior to her. She could not look down on him just because of his family background. His mother had once sought out a fortune teller, and the fortune teller had also said that this marriage might not be a peaceful one, and had advised against marriage. At that time, she was extremely rebellious. She didn't believe in her mother's words, and her heart was rebellious. Now that 2 years had passed, her family had agreed, and her marriage had begun to be arranged. In the end, she found an online fortune teller, and it was the same answer. Moreover, he didn't even have the slightest hint of modesty. He directly asked her not to get married. Zhao Rulan's face immediately darkened. "Is something big going to happen just because I got married? Even my mother's fortune teller wasn't so sure. He didn't want to read my life, but he just told me not to get married. What's going on?" 600 yuan was too easy to earn. Lin Sai Liao didn't think so at all. Instead, he admired the master even more. "She only knows your name and date of birth. She knows that you are going to get married, and she knows what will happen after you get married. Now she is telling you not to get married. Don't you think it's really scary?" Chapter 119. Generally, if a master wanted to tell a fortune, he would at least know what the fortune teller was looking for. For example, marriage. She had to tell the other party that she was about to get married before she could start to calculate her marriage. This shop didn't ask anything, but it seemed to know everything. When Zhao Rulan saw the words "don't get married," it was as if the incident from 2 years ago had happened again. She shook her head and didn't want to believe Lin Sai's words at all. "She's just a blind cat running into a dead mouse. Looking at my age, she should know that I should get married." Lin Sai said, "Then who knows that you're really about to get married? Why don't you try to ask why?" Zhao Rulan frowned and typed 3 words unhappily. "Why? Today, I don't think you'll want to know too much." Zhao Rulan was so angry that she laughed. She paid 600 yuan. Was this the answer she got? Anonymous buyer, what if I have to know? Today, family broken up. His cold words were like a sharp sword stabbing into Zhao Rulan's heart. What nonsense is she talking about? What nonsense is she talking about? Zhao Rulan was so angry that her whole body trembled. My family will be broken up after I get married. What does she mean? What does she mean? Is she cursing me? Lin Sai was also a little dumbfounded. Although she also didn't like her future brother-in-law, it didn't have to be like this, right? That brother-in-law of hers looked like an honest person. How did he end up with a broken family? Xiaolan, what's wrong? Zhao Rulan's fiancé, Wei Dashuan, who was about to marry her, walked over. His handsome face was tender and sweet. What's wrong? Zhao Rulan saw him and calmed down. She couldn't let Wei Dashuan know that she had found a fortune-teller. Otherwise, wouldn't he not believe in this marriage? What would Wei Dashuan think then? Zhao Rulan immediately shook her head. It's nothing. I just saw some news and was angry. Wei Dashuan immediately said, What news made you so angry? There's no need to. Calm down. He rubbed Zhao Rulan's head and smiled at Lin Sai. Then, he said, Xiaolan, don't be angry. I'll make you a cup of flower tea. Zhao Rulan hurriedly nodded her head. After Wei Dashuan left, she turned to Lin Sai and said, Look at your brother-in-law. He's such an understanding person. How could a fortune-teller say such words? Is this family ruined because of our marriage, or because of your brother-in-law? This is too much. Lin Sai, does being considerate guarantee a happy marriage? Although Lin Sai felt that the result of this calculation was a little scary, she was actually convinced in her heart. Hu Wei's matter was deeply rooted in her heart. The master had saved her life, and that was a fact. However, when she saw Zhao Rulan's expression, she was too embarrassed to say anything. This result was probably too much of a shock for her. From her point of view, it was indeed hard for her to accept. But thinking about it carefully, there was no need for the master to curse her, right? Zhao Rulan was so angry that she took out her phone and sent a message to Qiao Jin. Anonymous buyer, you're too irresponsible as a fortune-teller. Do you know what this result means? How can you say it so casually and irresponsibly? Are you going to say that you can help me change my luck and make me pay more? Aren't you afraid of losing your conscience by saying such things? She was so angry that she felt like she was going to explode. Chapter 120. Qiao Jin saw her reply and slowly curled his lips. This was to be expected. When someone could not accept their fate, they would use a thorny shell to attack others. Whether she believed it or not was up to others. It was not something she could control. However, it did not mean that she was a gentle person. Today, I don't have a conscience. I will do what I have to do and tell you the result according to your expectations. Today, you are here for fortune-telling. You should know what the result is. You don't owe me, and I don't owe you. You pay, and I will give you an answer. Today, you have the freedom to get married or not. Zhao Rulan was trembling with anger at Qiao Jin's attitude. Lin Sai's eyes almost popped out when she saw the chat. She quickly comforted Zhao Rulan. Sister, don't be rash. It's just a misunderstanding. It's just a misunderstanding. Isn't this kind of person just saying things without a conscience for money? Zhao Rulan spoke without thinking. I don't believe it. I want to report her. I can't let this kind of harmful seller survive on this kind of platform. What era is it now? Lin Sai panicked. Sister. She looked at Zhao Rulan and said, She's not wrong. I was the one who asked you to do the fortune-telling. We should have expected the results. You said she's a liar, but she did save my life and only took a few hundred yuan from me. Why didn't she cheat me of my money? You think that she is a liar. It's just that the result is too scary and you don't want to believe it. You can pretend that this didn't happen. I didn't ask you to do the fortune-telling. I will compensate you for the 600 yuan. Zhao Rulan was furious. You make it sound so easy. She didn't say that your family will be ruined. Lin Sai also retorted. Since you think that what she said is false, why do you still care about this? Zhao Rulan, she looked at Lin Sai and glared at her. She seemed to be in disbelief at her stubbornness. Lin Sai was also afraid in her heart. If Qiao Jin's divination was true, Zhao Rulan's family would be ruined once she got married. Then, if she sat by and did nothing, It was not what a younger sister should do. Even if it was for the sake of her godmother, she could not let such a tragedy happen to her family. However, her god-sister didn't believe her no matter what. Lin Sai knew that she couldn't explain it clearly here. She already had an inexplicable dislike for her brother-in-law. At this moment, she was actually a bit suspicious in her heart. The master said that the family was ruined because of marriage. Then, 80% of the problem was this brother-in-law. Could it be that there was something strange that they didn't know about? Their quarrel had attracted the attention of others. Zhao Rulan knew that she couldn't persuade Lin Sai. After a while, she returned the phone to Lin Sai and looked at her with disappointment. "You've been possessed by the devil. You're so young, but you believe in these things." Lin Sai wanted to use her words to refute her. "You weren't the one who almost died." Death had brushed past her. If she hadn't done the fortune-telling that day, how would she have suspected Hu Wei? The female corpse that had died tragically might have been her. Lin Sai said, "Yes, sister. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked you to do the fortune-telling today." After saying that, she walked to the side and sent a message to Qiao Jin with her own account. "Missing you is not as good as before, Master. I'm sorry. Please don't be angry. I was the one who recommended my sister. You said that her family was ruined because of marriage. Is it really that serious?" Chapter 121. Qiao Jin saw Lin Sai's message and had a good impression of this little girl. She liked tactful people who could seize the opportunity and not let it go. Lin Sai believed in her unswervingly. She could change many things. These things were unimaginable to ordinary people. "Today, I won't be angry. This kind of thing is very normal. A person's life can't be perfect." She should have some expectations when she came to fortune-telling. She might have thought of all kinds of answers, but it wasn't what she expected when she said it out loud. It was normal to resist or even not believe it at all. "Today, don't bother. You're asking for trouble." Lin Sai's heart turned cold when she saw this sentence. It was obvious that the master didn't want her to interfere. It was most likely a very dangerous matter. She had just been through the gates of hell and was scared out of her wits. However, she thought that Zhao Rulan was her sister and she didn't have a biological sister. Her mother treated Zhao Rulan as her biological daughter and the two families were very close. She had no choice but to bite the bullet and ask her. "Missing is better than past. Master, can't you tell me the reason? What's the problem after marriage?" "Today, no." Lin thought for a moment and sighed. She was just a little girl and was about to take the college entrance examination. The pressure was huge to think about these things. She could only do her last bit of strength. "Missing is better than past. Please, Master. My sister's family is quite good. I don't want to see their family end up like this. My mother will definitely be sad to death. Is there really no chance to save them? Even a little hint would do. Can I buy it with money?" Since the master opened a shop, he must need money, right? Although she said that she would buy it with money, her attitude was quite sincere. Qiao Jin admired this girl. Of course, there was a way to save her. It was quite simple. Just don't let her get married. However, who would care about this kind of thing? There were other ways to try, but Qiao Jin didn't intend to say it now. Fortune-telling was like this. If she believed it, she believed it. If she didn't, then forget it. She wouldn't do anything to prove herself. Today, in a few days. If she could save her, she wouldn't put herself in danger. She would definitely not do such a thing if she did a good deed and ended up being blamed on herself. She only replied with this sentence, at least giving Lin Sai a little hope. There was still a month before Zhao Rulan's wedding. After hearing this, Lin Sai had at least something to think about during this period of time. Of course, she also knew that she couldn't rely on others for this kind of thing. She planned to ask her mother at night to find out what kind of person her brother-in-law was and what kind of complicated situation his family was in. Qiao Jin turned off his computer after replying to Lin Sai's message. The doorbell rang. She went over to open the door, and the maid politely asked, "Miss, it's time for dinner." Qiao Jin nodded. "I'll be right down." She went over to change her clothes and went downstairs. The three Mu brothers were sitting there. Mu Chiji sat in the main seat while the twins sat beside him. Qiao Jin sat opposite the twins. As soon as she sat down, Mu Chiji said coldly, "After dinner, we'll have a family meeting. Mom and Dad will be there too." Qiao Jin said thoughtfully, "They're back?" Mu Chiji, "Turn on the video call." Qiao Jin, "Oh, it seemed that this family meeting was most likely targeted at her." Chapter 122. After dinner, the servants cleared away the bowls. Qiao Jin sat on a single-seater sofa with Mu Chiji sitting above him. He sat alone on a long sofa with his long legs crossed elegantly. At this moment, he was looking at Qiao Jin's college results from last month. From the way his eyebrows were furrowed, it was obvious how dissatisfied he was. Qiao Jin didn't think there was anything to see. The twins sat across from him, looking a little solemn. After a while, Mu Chiji turned on his phone and operated something. A WeChat video call interface appeared on the big TV in the living room. Xiao Fei picked up the phone. Behind her was the damp smell of the waves. Looking at the children at home, her smile widened. "Aya, Qi Ji, Qi Chu, Qi Lian, Jin, how are you? Have you eaten?" Mu Chiji, "When I turned on the video call just now, I already told you that it's after dinner." "Mom, you don't have to ask too much." Xiao Fei, "Isn't this to say hello to you? I care about you." She looked a little sad. Mu Zhenming looked at the children at home from the side and said with a serious expression, "Is everyone here?" Mu Zillian couldn't help but complain. "Dad, look at our family. Who else is missing?" Mu Zhenming didn't look embarrassed at all. He just snorted and acted like he usually did at the company. "Okay, then let's start the family meeting. Qi Ji, the main point of the meeting is..." Before he could finish, Xiao Fei interrupted him. "Aya, don't be so serious. This isn't your company. You can just say whatever you want. You'll make the children very nervous. It's not a big deal." Mu Zhenming, "It's not a big deal. It's time to educate them." Mu Chiji glanced at the couple in the video call and then slowly said, "Today's meeting is mainly about Qiao Jin." At the mention of her name, Qiao Jin sat up a little straighter. Mu Chiji's expression was solemn. "Qiao Jin is now a member of our family, and also our sister. I hope you don't take the past to heart. What Qi Lian and Qi Chu did was neither right nor wrong. Father and I will take care of the Lan family's follow-up matters." Xiao Fei, "Okay." Mu Chiji paused for a moment before continuing, "In the future, you have to be careful when you do things. Things like today must never happen again. Especially, don't bring Qiao Jin to places that he shouldn't go. Mu Zillian, especially you." Xiao Fei, "Yes." Mu Zillian was a little unwilling. "I just want her to go and see if it's those bastards." Mu Chiji said, "You have to be polite. Don't forget that you're a member of the Mu family." Mu Zillian, "Is it those bastards?" Mu Chiji's gaze turned to Qiao Jin. "Qiao Jin, what do you think?" Qiao Jin paused for a moment. "What do I need to think?" Mu Chiji looked at her and then reminded her. "Those bastards." Mu Chiji was asking her how she wanted to deal with those bastards. It seemed that the Mu family didn't intend to let this matter go so easily. Therefore, they didn't think that it was a big problem for Mu Zichu and Mu Zillian to fight. It was just that it would be a little troublesome to deal with those families in the future. Qiao Jin's injury, however, couldn't be let go just like that. Qiao Jin's lips curled up slightly. "You guys can make the decision." Her karma was the best revenge. Naturally, there was no need for him to add fuel to the fire. Chapter 123. Mu Zillian couldn't help but say, "See, I was right." She was bullied and didn't know how to retaliate. No wonder she was bullied. "Qiao Jin," Xiao Fei protested in the video. "Qi Lian, your sister is kind-hearted." Mu Zillian, "The Holy Mother is alive." Xiao Fei, "You." Mu Zhenming interrupted their argument with a dark face. "All right, let's talk about this later. If there's nothing else to say, I'll hang up first." Mu Chiji, "There's one more important point. Qiao Jin has problems with her studies. I've seen it. Her professional grades are average, and her foundation grades are even worse. She needs a teacher to tutor her. Qiao Jin immediately said, "No, I don't really need it. Someone can tutor me." If there was a teacher to help her in class, she would rather use Song Yanqing's notes. At least, after reading his notes recently, it was really effective. She simply didn't like people being too close to her. Of course, after saying this, Mu Qizhi and the others all turned to look at her. "Who?" Mu Zilian said suspiciously, "Your classmate in school?" Qiao Jin was silent for a moment, then said directly, "Song Yanqing gave me notes." "Who?" Mu Zilian thought he was hallucinating at that moment. Mu Qizhi and Mu Zichu were a little shocked, as were Qiao Fei and Mu Zhenming in the video. Qiao Fei immediately said in a high voice, "Who? Who are you talking about?" Qiao Jin's expression was calm. "It's Song Yanqing, the young master of the Song family. I have a collaboration with him. He helped me with my studies, so I don't need additional guidance from a teacher." Mu Zilian's eyes almost popped out. "How do you know Song Yanqing? Didn't she hear that Qiao Jin had cursed the young master of the Song family?" Song Yanqing had almost met with an accident not long ago. It was said that he was gone, but he had miraculously woken up a few minutes later. Mu Zichu and Mu Zilian had even visited him. At that time, Song Yanqing had asked Qiao Jin about it. However, he naturally expressed his doubts about the sudden addition of a daughter to the Mu family. Basically, he did not say anything. The two of them did not expect that Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin actually knew each other in private. Qiao Fei seemed to want to say something, but Mu Zhenming gently pushed her arm. He called the Mu family that night. Although he did not ask in detail, it seemed that the matter of the Song family's young master had something to do with Qiao Jin. The Song family had kept it a secret, and they didn't even tell him, the uncle in name. He was puzzled, but since the Song family didn't cause any trouble, it meant that nothing had happened. Qiao Fei's actions could easily cause the three young people to misunderstand. Qiao Jin simply said, "Of course we know each other." The others looked at each other doubtfully. Even if Song Yanqing lived in seclusion, there were rumors about his character. Although he was polite, they had never heard that he had a deep relationship with any young peers. If Qiao Jin knew Song Yanqing, wouldn't the news have been spread out long ago? Mu Zilian felt as if he had heard something dreamy. "Song Yanqing also took notes for you. Don't tease me. Do you know which school he graduated from?" He had begun to work for his father. How could he help Qiao Jin take notes in college? Qiao Jin said, "I don't know, and I'm too lazy to ask. As I said, we are in a cooperative relationship." Mu Zilian continued to ask, "How can you cooperate with Song Yanqing? No one in their family could trust him." Chapter 124. If Qiao Jin cooperated with Song Yanqing, it would be the biggest joke in the world. One was the most respected person in the Song family. The Mu family was still far inferior to the Song family. It was just that Mu Zhenming's reputation was not bad and he had some business dealings with the Song family. Hence, among his peers, Mu Qilian and Mu Qichu could still see Song Yanqing and speak to him. But if it was Qiao Jin, wouldn't the difference be too great? Not to mention that Qiao Jin had cursed Song Yanqing, they felt that there was a conspiracy, but they couldn't figure it out. Qiao Jin pursed her lips and said, "It's not convenient to say now. This is a secret." When she said this, the three of them looked a little strange. In the video, Mu Zhenming waved his hand and settled the family meeting. "Okay, she has her secrets. Don't dig into the root of it. It's fine as long as nothing happens." His wish was so humble. As long as the Song family didn't cause trouble, everything was fine. He had a headache about this adopted daughter who wasn't related by blood. Mu Qizhi's eyes were deep in thought. He stared at Qiao Jin for a while and nodded. "Okay, today's family meeting will end here." The twins still had something to ask, but the family meeting was over. Mu Zichu went back to his room first. Mu Zilian looked at Qiao Jin suspiciously before leaving. Mu Qizhi looked at Qiao Jin and said in a low voice, "I'll wait for the day when you're willing to speak." There were some things that Qiao Jin would say. Qiao Jin nodded slowly. Mu Qizhi also nodded. "Rest early. Good night." After saying that, he went back to his bedroom. This family was really interesting. Qiao Jin thought of this and smiled slightly. Speak of the devil. Just as they were discussing Song Yanqing's message came in. Song Yanqing, do you need to come and find me again? It just so happens that I have a new set of notes for you. I just found some of the research I did when I was in college. Some of them are related to your professional courses. I hope they will be helpful to you. It's Jinyo. Okay, I'll come over tomorrow. Thank you. It was also time to collect Song Yanqing's death aura. The next morning, Qiao Jin set off for the Song family. However, she didn't take the chauffeur's car. She simply took a taxi and went there. When she arrived at the mountainside of the Song family's mansion, she informed Song Yanqing. Only then did he know that she had arrived. After waiting for a while, drove down to pick her up. When he saw Qiao Jin, Dan smiled respectfully. Miss Qiao, I should have gone to pick you up. I'm really sorry for making you come in person. Ever since the incident with Song Yanqing, Dan admired Qiao Jin very much. He knew that she was mysterious and capable. However, as a bodyguard, he knew very well that he would never say what he shouldn't say. Qiao Jin just smiled faintly and said, "You're too polite. I said that I would come. It's just a matter of taking a taxi." She got into Dan's car and asked, "Your young master is at home now, right?" Dan nodded quickly. "Yes, young master knew that you were coming today. He even asked the kitchen to prepare a meal." For the time being, Qiao Jin did not answer his question of whether he wanted to eat here. Instead, she suddenly said, "You'd better do what you promised me." Dan's smile froze. "Miss Qiao, what I promised?" Qiao Jin smiled. "Jump off the balcony." Dan. Chapter 125. Jumping off the balcony was just Dan's nonsense. It could also be called mockery. He didn't expect retribution to come. Really jump." Dan stuttered. He couldn't believe that Qiao Jin was so serious. Qiao Jin sighed and seemed a little helpless. "You said it. I didn't force you to say it." Dan, he wasn't the kind of person who couldn't understand. Hearing this, he said with grief and indignation, "I'll jump." Jumping down from the young master's place was the swimming pool, so it was just diving. Wasn't it just jumping off the balcony? Since Miss Qiao asked him to jump, he would jump. These were the words that he had said himself. As a man, once a word was spoken, it was hard to take it back. Not to mention a person like him. Qiao Jin nodded and smiled without saying anything. The car drove to the mansion halfway up the mountain and directly into the courtyard. The last time he came, he only attended the banquet and briefly looked around. However, through the Fengming array of the Song family's mansion, he had a simple understanding of the layout here. Naturally, the Fengming array hadn't been removed, but because of the major changes, the red dot inside had begun to dim. Qiao Jin wouldn't help the Song family remove the Fengming array now. When that person couldn't stand it and showed up, he would know what was going on. Dan led Qiao Jin directly to Song Yanqing's courtyard. Along the way, they saw many servants of the Song family, but no one was curious about Qiao Jin's appearance. It wasn't that they weren't curious, but the rules of the Song family were here. When guests came, they couldn't look left and right. Stepping into Song Yanqing's courtyard, Qiao Jin saw Song Yanqing's back. He was wearing a beige sweater and slim trousers today, looking as elegant as usual. He was bending down and feeding a fat cat with tiger stripes. The sun shone on him, as if he was covered with a layer of warm golden light. He didn't expect Song Yanqing to raise a cat. Most importantly, it wasn't an expensive breed. It just looked like an ordinary fat cat. At that moment, Song Yanqing was feeding it food. Fat cat raised its paws, as if trying to snatch the food from Song Yanqing's hands. Sensing movement, Song Yanqing turned around and straightened up. He looked at Qiao Jin and smiled faintly. "Qiao Jin." Qiao Jin stepped forward curiously. "Is this your cat?" When the cat saw the stranger approaching, it took a big step back cautiously. The cat stared at Qiao Jin, as if it would pounce on her if she made any strange movements. "Yes." Song Yanqing gently waved his hand. "Ding dang, this is a guest." Ding Dang? Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows. He felt that this was not a name that Song Yanqing could come up with. Song Yanqing smiled and said, "My sister picked this cat up and gave it to me. She also named it." Qiao Jin said, "Oh." When the two of them were talking, Zai, who was behind, silently looked at the two of them talking happily. In the end, he made a decision and bitterly went to the balcony. Below the balcony was a large swimming pool. He wouldn't die if he jumped. Song Yanqing noticed his movements and called out, "Zai, go get someone to make a cup of flower tea for Miss Qiao." "No rush." Qiao Jin pursed his lips into a faint smile. Under Song Yanqing's puzzled gaze, he said, "He has to fulfill a promise he made to me first." Song Yanqing was a little surprised. Then he asked with some interest, "What did Zai promise you?" Chapter 126. Qiao Jin raised his chin. "You'll know soon." Bai quickly went up to the second floor of Song Yanqing's house, where he often sat in his bedroom on the balcony. The transparent glass partition faced the swimming pool downstairs. Bai's figure appeared there. He looked at Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing with a bitter expression. "Young master, I owe Miss Qiao a promise. I said that if I asked Miss Qiao to save you, I would jump off the balcony." Song Yanqing's memory was amazing. He quickly remembered that when Qiao Jin came over, Bai had indeed said such a joke. He was a little amused. "That's your promise?" Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows. "How is it not a promise?" "He said it himself, I didn't force him to say it." A real man jumped off the balcony on his own accord. Fulfilling a promise is a real man. Bai nodded. Miss Qiao is right. Song Yanqing's eyes swept the distance from the balcony to the swimming pool. There was a hint of a smile in his voice. "Then jump." Bai, he looked downstairs. He was still wearing his suit. He couldn't be fully prepared to take off his clothes and jump down. Thus, he took a deep breath and jumped up from the balcony. Splash! He jumped into the pool, creating a huge splash. This sudden action scared Ding Dang into crazily meowing. Perhaps she didn't know what was wrong with this human. Bai's entire body sank into the pool. Not long after, he emerged from the pool. His entire body was soaked, and his hair was drooping down, dripping water. It looked a little funny. He wiped his face and opened his eyes to look at Qiao Jin. "Miss Qiao, is my jump okay?" "Qiao Jin, if I say no, you have to jump again." Bai, Song Yanqing couldn't help but smile. "Go and change your clothes. Also, get someone to prepare a pot of flower tea for Miss Qiao." "Yes, young master." Dan hurriedly got out of the pool and hurriedly changed his clothes. After this episode, Song Yanqing looked at Qiao Jin. "The notes are in my room. If you're not in a hurry, why don't you leave after lunch? I've already asked someone to prepare the meal." He was obviously prepared. Qiao Jin had nothing to do, and Song Yanqing had told her to prepare the meal, so she nodded. Just in time. Seeing that Qiao Jin had agreed, Song Yanqing thought for a moment and said, "I have something to tell you." He led Qiao Jin into the room. The room on the first floor was the living room. Qiao Jin had been here before. Song Yanqing went upstairs and took a few books down. It was a thick stack. Qiao Jin looked at the stack of books with an unreadable expression. "My grades are good. I don't need any extra tutoring." Seeing her expression, Song Yanqing smiled and said, "It's not just for your professional classes. Most of them are for the basic classes. There are records of what I've learned before. They should be helpful to you." Qiao Jin, Song Yanqing put the books in an exquisite box and looked at Qiao Jin. Why would such an amazing child have difficulties with her studies? Qiao Jin stared at Song Yanqing. After a while, she said slowly, "No one is perfect in this world. Everyone was good at different things." She was good at formations, but it didn't mean that everything was not challenging for her. She wasn't human. Perhaps such a god didn't even exist. Song Yanqing nodded. "I can see that." Qiao Jin. Chapter 127. Ding Dang also scurried into the room. It seemed to be very curious about a stranger in the house. When Song Yanqing walked over, it jumped into Song Yanqing's embrace, sticking to its owner. Only that pair of cat eyes were still looking at Xiao Jin. At this moment, it was no longer vigilant, but it couldn't be said to have a good impression of him. This kind of man holding a cat was like a beautiful painting. His slender fingers stroked the back of Ding Dang's neck and rubbed it, saying, "Ding Dang was raised in the backyard a while ago because of its body and was not released. It just so happened that it came back today. It has a rather timid personality and will be on guard against strangers. If you look at it twice, it will be like family." Xiao Jin stared at Ding Dang for 2 seconds, to the point that Ding Dang forgot about Song Yanqing's embrace and shrunk even more. It didn't know that its special treatment should be envied by many. After a while, Xiao Jin smiled. Where was it picked up? Song Yanqing raised his head, as if he was a bit surprised. It was picked up by my big sister on the streets. When she picked up Ding Dang, its mother had already breathed her last. It was weakly crying out. My big sister pitied it and picked it up to raise it for a while. Later on, she gave it to me on my birthday. He didn't particularly like animals, but after raising Ding Dang by his side for so long, it had a different meaning. In reality, there were very few people or animals close to him. Even if it was a cat or a dog, his family was afraid that they would scratch him and that there would be serious consequences. At that time, if Ding Dang hadn't confirmed that it wouldn't scratch people, Song Suyu definitely wouldn't have given it to his little brother. Her heart also ached. Her little brother had been alone for too long. It wasn't that he didn't want to interact with others, but that the family didn't allow it. Whoever he had a deep relationship with, the Song family would even investigate the other party's 18 generations of ancestors. Being friends with Song Yanqing was also a huge pressure. This cat was given to Song Yanqing by Song Suyu to relieve his boredom. If Xiao Jin hadn't displayed a special ability, then with her awkward status in the Mu family and the previous events, Song Shiyin definitely wouldn't have allowed her to interact with Song Yanqing. Seeing her staring at Ding Dang, Song Yanqing brought the cat forward. "Do you want a hug?" Meow 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 tilde. Ding Dang saw that its master was about to give it to Xiao Jin and hurriedly grabbed Song Yanqing's sweater, showing its unwillingness. Xiao Jin sneered, "I don't like furry ones." "Oh." He only gave a gentle smile, then bent his body and placed Ding Dang down. Ding Dang landed on the ground and glanced at Xiao Jin, then Su jumped up the stairs is back SSS. His gaze circled around Xiao Jin's wrist. Xiao Jin's body was recovering very quickly. The scar on his wrist was now only a thin pink scar. If one didn't look carefully, they probably wouldn't notice it. As long as they investigated Xiao Jin's suicide, it would be easy to find out. She nodded and said, "Almost." He had already investigated Xiao Jin's matter. It was really hard to imagine that such a powerful person like her would commit suicide and take drugs. Furthermore, perhaps it was different. Her personality didn't seem to match with the previous information. Thinking of the abilities that Xiao Jin had shown, he could roughly guess what it was, but he couldn't say it out loud. It was a little shocking, but he felt that nothing was impossible when it came to her. Chapter 128. The feeling this girl gave him had always been very faint. It was so faint that he had the illusion that she didn't belong to this world. He slowly stretched out his hand and spread his slender fingers. Even the skin on his hand was delicate and smooth, porcelain white and flawless. But he just looked at Xiao Jin and smiled. "Do you need to collect the death aura?" Xiao Jin looked at him and nodded slowly. But she wasn't in a hurry to stretch out her hand. She just looked at Song Yanqing and said, "I want to see something from you." Song Yanqing asked, "What do you want to see?" Xiao Jin lowered her eyes and then raised them again. There was a strange emotion in her eyes. The Rakshasa realm. The Rakshasa realm? This unfamiliar word surprised Song Yanqing. "When I saved you last time, I was very curious why there were demons of the Rakshasa realm coveting you." At that time, Song Yanqing was about to die. She saw the demons of the Rakshasa realm. Generally speaking, the Rakshasa realm and the real world wouldn't have any intersection. Only the spiritual reader was the medium between the two worlds. Demons would use the evil thoughts in the spiritual reader's heart to achieve their goals. Then, they would lure the spiritual reader into becoming demons and finally retrieve the spirit seed of the demonized spiritual reader back to the Rakshasa realm. But in Qiao Jin's memory, the demons of the Rakshasa realm wouldn't have direct contact with a human, let alone stay by a human's side. She had heard of a similar situation before, but demons were straightforward. If they were like this, it meant that there must be something on Song Yanqing that made them so greedy. After he died, these demons would also get great benefits. Demons. Song Yanqing blinked. His long eyelashes fluttered. From his deep eyes, there was a strong sense of doubt. Do demons still exist? But when it came to demons, he had already thought of the world he saw. If those things weren't demons, he wouldn't believe it. It's demons. At this moment, Qiao Jin's voice suddenly became a little hazy. Her voice was originally clear and ethereal, but now, with this layer of haziness, it sounded as if she was speaking from another world. She raised her hand and slowly reached for Song Yanqing's neck. His neck was long and slender, and even his prominent Adam's apple was like a work of art. Her skin was so thin that even the veins under her neck could be seen. Song Yanqing only frowned slightly. When the hands touched his neck, Qiao Jin's calm voice said, "Don't be afraid. You will see." He wasn't actually afraid, but he wasn't used to having someone so close to him. However, in just 2 seconds, he calmed down. He knew that Qiao Jin was different from the rest. He also knew that Qiao Jin wouldn't just have the shallow idea of taking advantage of him. He also wanted to see what Qiao Jin would let him see. When the hands touched his neck, they brought a slight chill. Her movements were gentle to avoid giving Song Yanqing the illusion that she wanted to strangle him. Then, her thumb slowly pressed on the prominent Adam's apple. Because of the strange feeling, Song Yanqing's Adam's apple moved up and down. She felt the obvious movement and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, Song Yanqing could clearly see the red dot flashing in her eyes. The red dot outlined a strange pattern. It was just a short moment, but it was enough to make people tremble. Something slid down his Adam's apple, bringing with it a clear chill. The surrounding heaven and earth suddenly became dim, and everything lost their original color, becoming gray and defeated. Around them, there were malevolent demons, terrifying roars, and vicious gazes looking at them. Chapter 129. This was a completely different world. It had existed in Song Yanqing's world for many years. He had always been confused as to why he was the only one who could see such a world. Of course, for so many years, although these ferocious demons had always looked at him with a covetous gaze, they had never spoken to him or done anything malicious to him. Perhaps it was impossible. This didn't seem like a normal world. Qiao Jin's compassion was reflected in Song Yanqing's pupils. He discovered that her body was actually glowing faintly. Just like what he saw that day, it was the only light in this dark world. The light was crystal clear and actually enveloped Qiao Jin, appearing incomparably holy. Unlike before, the demons today were clearly very manic. They were roaring at Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing, flapping their huge wings and roaring at the sky, but they couldn't get close to them. Qiao Jin looked at this scene and was a little surprised. They actually summoned the Rakshasa world. Those hands were still pressed on his neck, and at this moment, he could feel the softness of the girl's palms. The two of them were very close, and it was the first time in so many years that Song Yanqing had been so close to someone. Moreover, he couldn't be disgusted. He didn't like people touching him, but at this moment, he had a different feeling. He didn't reject Qiao Jin's touch. Moreover, the situation in front of him didn't allow him to think about anything else. He slowly turned his neck and looked at the resentful eyes of the demons around him. He asked softly, "What is the Rakshasa world?" Qiao Jin held his neck like this, his eyes moving around, and slowly explained, "The Rakshasa world is a world that exists like our human world. You can think of it as another world. The Rakshasa world and the human world are not connected. Demons can't come over, and we humans can't go over. But spiritual psyche masters can be connected to the Rakshasa world. The demons of the Rakshasa world lure the demonized spiritual psyche masters and take their spirit seeds to strengthen themselves. For ordinary spiritualists, they can only be inspired by the Rakshasa realm, but they can't see it. In the years that I have existed, only a few spiritual thought masters were like me, able to form a connection with the true Rakshasa world. Her gaze gradually locked onto Song Yanqing. You are the second human I have ever seen whose soul has formed a connection with the Rakshasa realm. When something abnormal happens around you, the Rakshasa realm's demons will descend. They are there to protect you, but also to plot against you. Song Yanqing's eyes shone with a flirtatious brilliance. You're protecting me, but you're also scheming against me. While they were talking, a huge demon flapped its wings and appeared. It floated behind Song Yanqing. It was a few meters tall and had a ferocious face. Its facial features were similar to that of a human. The only difference was that its skin was completely black, like the bark of an old tree. It looked ferocious with its twisted roots and joints. Its eyes seemed to be scarlet. It roared at Qiao Jin from behind Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing had been here for so many years, but he had never heard the demons speak. He could only hear their roars. At this moment, he heard the roar from the demons. It was like a murmur from hell. It had the magic power to corrupt people, but it also had the power to make people fear. The voice was extremely strange. He only saw the girl in front of him slowly smile at his back. The struggle of a trapped beast. Chapter 130. She didn't say it to him, but to the thing behind him. After saying this, she slowly let go of her hand. Following her movements, the surrounding scenery returned to its original state, returning to the colors it should have. Meow meow meow. Ding Dang ran down and probably sensed something. At this moment, she tilted her head and looked at them from the side of the stairs. Her big eyes were filled with doubt. Song Yanqing only looked at Qiao Jin, and said in a calm tone, "So, why did the Rakshasa world come to find me?" "You're different." Qiao Jin only guessed casually, "Other than your fate being swapped, I can't see anything about you that can catch the eye of the Rakshasa world. But they won't just follow you for no reason." Qiao Jin looked at Song Yanqing, and a strong interest had already ignited in his heart. "Maybe when your fate comes back, I'll be able to know why." In her long years, there weren't many things that could arouse her interest. She had no desire for anything. Even if power and money were at her fingertips, those were too superfluous to her. Song Yanqing saw the interest in her eyes, and his heart trembled as he thought of what she had said just now. "In the years that you existed," the corner of his lips curled into a probing smile, "you give me the feeling that you've existed for a long time." Not too long. If one excluded the 10,000 years of history, Qiao Jin's real existence hadn't been long. She was the most talented array master in that era. And now it was the modern world, far from her civilized world. Even the history of mankind could only be traced back to a few thousand years ago. Something must have happened back then. With her disappearance, everything was covered up. However, the existence of spiritual reader had always existed for a long time. Song Yanqing lowered his eyes and said his thoughts, "Sometimes you give me a very contradictory feeling. You're like a powerful child, but you have a mature side. However, many things are very immature." It was like a person who didn't fit in and was slowly integrating into this world. He didn't know where this feeling came from. Qiao Jin was a little surprised. Song Yanqing was actually right in a sense. Although she had awakened now, she was indeed a soul from 10,000 years ago. She was now accepting everything in the modern world. Because her future was unfolding in this world, she had to learn to accept and get used to it. There were many things that were still being investigated, but she did indeed possess that period of civilization. She knew many things that others didn't know, and even existences that these people couldn't imagine. Thinking of this, Qiao Jin smiled faintly. "You can say that, but I'm not going to tell you why. She is very straightforward." Song Yanqing's eyebrows overflow with a gentle smile. "I think one day you will tell me." "Qiao Jin, maybe." Song Yanqing knew that Qiao Jin wouldn't say anything, so he wouldn't delve into this question. He only continued the topic from before and asked, "You said that the Rakshasa world is both protecting me and scheming against me?" Qiao Jin nodded. "The reason they protect you is to ensure that nothing happens to you. They have a plan for you. Before this plan succeeds, they have to protect you." Song Yanqing's life providence hadn't returned yet, so he didn't know what the Rakshasa world was plotting. However, the Rakshasa world couldn't come to this world. They could only use their believers, demonized spiritual readers. Chapter 131. Song Yanqing would not be in danger for the time being, and Qiao Jin would not rashly calculate his fate. Karma was actually not that binding on ordinary people. Otherwise, there would not be so many problems of scourges living for thousands of years. The existence of karma was to assist the conclusion that it was destined to be, and it should not interfere with the fate of ordinary people. Karma had given them different levels of power in order to suppress her. And under this limit, it was up to them to choose whether they were good or evil. Qiao Jin could not say whether it was good or bad. At least with her status, she would not inexplicably attack ordinary people in order to show off her superiority. Of course, she would not allow anyone to offend her. Song Yanqing's death aura was helpful to her, so she could help Song Yanqing appropriately. This was an exchange. Song Yanqing walked out with her, and he asked one last question. The Rakshasa world will not hinder you, right? Qiao Jin nodded. The Rakshasa world itself was a different world from theirs, and they did not hinder each other. Even if there were some believers, Qiao Jin would not take them seriously. She stayed at the Song family for lunch. Only she and Song Yanqing were at the dinner table. The Songs were all outside, and they all had their own things to do. If it were not for Qiao Jin coming today, Song Yanqing would probably be busy in the company. Song Yanqing ate elegantly, and Qiao Jin also ate in a refined manner. She just asked curiously, "You were not in good health in the past, so what did you do most of the time by yourself?" Song Yanqing paused for a moment, and then looked at Qiao Jin. "Then I did things with my brain, such as studying and helping the family with its affairs." "Qiao Jin, don't you have any friends?" Song Yanqing paused for a moment. There were a few who could be considered friends, but with his status, the other party was similar to him. They had already started to help the family, and it was difficult to see them all year round. Moreover, they could not be considered bosom friends. Therefore, there was no one who could truly be a close friend. There was also Ardan by his side to protect him, but Ardan's status was different from his, so Ardan treated him with utmost respect. From beginning to end, Song Yanqing could be considered to be alone. But at this moment, a happy smile appeared on his face. There wasn't before, but perhaps there is now. Qiao Jin's reaction wasn't slow. "You mean me?" Song Yanqing put down his chopsticks. "If you think I'm worthy of being your friend." Hearing this, she found it interesting. "Actually, I don't have any friends either." She had never had a friend before because she could see through one's fate. She had just woken up. Other than the Mu family, she did not have any friends. She said calmly and nodded seriously. "We can be friends." Song Yanqing looked at her, and his eyes seemed to be able to soften the years. "Okay, from now on, we are friends." Qiao Jin nodded. She didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. The old antiques from 10,000 years ago actually had some ideas, which were still a little out of touch with modern people. In her eyes, it was very natural for a man and a woman to become friends. She found Song Yanqing pleasing to the eye, so she naturally wanted to be friends with him. She didn't think much about other things. Because there were some things that had never appeared in her life. "Since we are friends, I'll give you a gift." Song Yanqing said this. His voice was a little higher, but it was still clear and pleasant like a stream. "Ardan." Chapter 132. Arpei walked in from outside the door. He had a good relationship with Song Yanqing, unlike the bodyguard and the young master. However, the rules of the Song family were strict. When Song Yanqing was eating, he usually stayed outside. Today, Qiao Jin was here, so he didn't stay inside. Hearing the young master's call, he immediately came in and said respectfully, "Young master, what's the matter?" Song Yanqing said, "There is a wooden box on the desk in my bedroom. Take it down." Arpei seemed to know what it was. When he heard Song Yanqing say so, he was a little surprised. However, he didn't ask anything and went to take it. Qiao Jin frowned. "What gift?" Song Yanqing smiled and said, "You should like it." Arpei quickly took it down and put it on the table. Then, he went out. It was a heavy wooden box with complicated patterns painted on it. At first glance, it was expensive. Song Yanqing opened the box. Inside was a book. This book looked a little old. The packaging on the outside was exquisite. The thick leather cover was like a paper shell. On it were the words "Ancient Ruins." These words were written in an ancient style. It was a very thick book. Song Yanqing took it out and handed it to Qiao Jin. Since I learned about what my father said, I have been very curious about these things. I have been looking for news everywhere. I accidentally learned about the modern version of this ancient book from someone else. It took me a lot of effort to get it. I have probably finished reading the content inside, but I think it should be helpful to you. It records some strange things that have been passed down since ancient times. Many of them, I think, are related to the spiritual reader master. It seems to be written by a spiritual reader master. Song Yanqing continued, "The value of this book is very precious. My father said that the fortune teller also mentioned this book, but no one has found the original. I think you should take a look." "Is that so?" Qiao Jin wasn't very curious, but she took it. Since it was written by a spiritual reader master and it was an ancient book, it probably recorded the development of some things. Qiao Jin was indeed interested in this at the moment. She couldn't guarantee that she wouldn't get some clues about her nemesis, but at least she could see how the era of psychic sorcerers changed after they disappeared. Thinking of this, Qiao Jin looked at Song Yanqing. "This gift is very precious and I am indeed interested in it. Since you gave it to me, I'll give you a gift too." After saying this, she stretched out her finger again and pressed it on Song Yanqing's Adam's apple. However, this time, the movements were very fast, and the Rakshasa world did not appear. Song Yanqing only felt an aura enter his throat, and it was indescribably cold. "You don't have to worry about the Rakshasa realm's devils harassing you anymore. With me here, you don't have to see them for the time being." Song Yanqing was just an ordinary person, and he knew that the Rakshasa realm must have brought some trouble to his world. Looking at those ugly things every day, he probably wouldn't be in a good mood. Song Yanqing didn't expect it to be such a gift. He touched his Adam's apple and chuckled. "Thank you." Qiao Jin said, "You're welcome. You also gave me a gift." She put away the book and Song Yanqing's notes, and then left the Song family's mansion happily. Ah Tong couldn't leave Song Yanqing, so she sent someone to send her home. She turned around and returned to the house, facing Song Yanqing with a face full of shock. "Young master, you know that many people are looking for that book, so you directly gave it to Miss Qiao. She was a bit too generous." Song Yanqing sat in the house and said, "It's not a loss." Ah Tong. Chapter 133. Qiao Jin returned home with the book Song Yanqing gave him. It was indeed quite interesting. This book recorded the vicissitudes of life in just 100 years from the perspective of a psychic. It was about 1,000 years from now. The ancient book had been refurbished by the author. Many of the contents were strange stories and traces of the existence of other psychic. Qiao Jin found an interesting point. That was, the book mentioned a special kind of psychic. From his perspective, it was an array master. Compared to the scarcity of psychic speakers, array masters were still traceable. Obviously, the author had a strong interest in this kind of special psychic, which also made Qiao Jin understand one thing. Even 1,000 years ago, the traces of array masters began to disappear at that time. As a result, people now only had the concept that psychic was equivalent to a wizard. Array masters and psychic speakers had disappeared in the long river of history. But this was not the case. There were array masters in the Feng family, including the current situation of Song Yanqing, which was also caused by array masters. At least it proved that someone still kept a part of the secrets of array masters. The special thing about array masters was that they were not like wizards who could do whatever they wanted. Array masters needed to know the array points. In this world, there were array points at every moment and every place. This was the foundation that array masters relied on. Just like when Qiao Jin cast spells, the array points were connected, and she could achieve the effect she wanted. Of course, if you were not an array master, you could not see the array points. Feng Shui was related to array points. Some array points were naturally connected and would create a natural pattern. This was the Feng Shui pattern. Different array points had different effects. Qiao Jin slightly narrowed his eyes. He was curious if people nowadays thought that array masters were the same as them. Although they were all psychic, there were some differences between them. On the way back from the Song family, she felt that someone was following her. It was the same person from last time. She pursed her lips and smiled. She did not take it seriously. It was not until she returned home that her face changed a little. Even the originally light and peaceful smile gradually faded and became a little heavy. Her dark and bright eyes looked at the lights in the house. She smelled something unusual. It was a smell that made her extremely unhappy. When she arrived at the door, the servants in the house had already noticed her figure and quickly came out to receive her. They took away the things in her hands and said, "The young miss of the Feng family has come to our house as a guest." Qiao Jin raised his lips and smiled faintly. "Isn't she already paralyzed? How many years does she have to recuperate? You're back so soon?" The servant didn't know the ins and outs of the matter, but she knew that Feng Fei he had an accident. She just didn't dare to answer Qiao Jin's question rashly. Mu Zhenming and Qiao Fei were already back in the living room. Everyone was chatting happily. When they saw Qiao Jin, Qiao Fei's eyes lit up. "Jin, you're back?" Everyone looked at Qiao Jin. The three brothers of the Mu family were not here. There were only Qiao Jin and Mu Zhenming at home. Sitting opposite them were Feng Fei he, who had an accident not long ago and was said to be paralyzed for several years, and her parents. When Feng Fei he looked over, there was an inconspicuous resentment in the depths of her eyes, but no one else saw it. In the eyes of Qiao Jin, her beautiful face was full of hypocritical smiles at the moment. Feng Fei his mother looked at Qiao Jin and showed a superficial friendly smile. "This is Qiao Jin. You are really generous and talented." Chapter 134. These words were a bit interesting. Mu Zhenming frowned. Those who were well informed would know about Qiao Jin's matter. At this moment, Xie Zhihua's words clearly had a hidden meaning, but Qiao Fei couldn't understand it. She was silly and sweet. She really thought that others were praising her daughter. She couldn't help but say, "Fortunately, Feihe is still beautiful." She was just being modest, and Xie Zhihua's expression looked a little smug. "Qiao Fei, I just casually said something, and you're panting?" His own daughter was loved by his own family. Even if Qiao Jin's appearance was not as exquisite as Feng Fei his, Qiao Fei still felt that his daughter looked more elegant than Feng Fei he. Qiao Jin's appearance was not necessarily worse than Feng Fei his, especially her temperament, which was transparent and superior. Feng Fei his appearance was too exquisite. When she was expressionless, she looked like a mannequin. She only looked good on the surface. It was not good to continue. Feng Yongshe also looked at Qiao Jin with a meaningful look. "Qiao Jin and our family's Feihe are classmates, right?" As soon as his voice fell, Qiao Jin said faintly, "It's just the same school. I'm not familiar with it." Qiao Jin didn't give face. After saying this, she looked at Feng Fei he with interest. "I heard that Miss Feng had a serious accident and had to lie in bed for several years. Now it seems that some rumors are just rumors." As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the three members of the Feng family were a little stiff. Xie Zhihua quickly said, "It's all nonsense outside. It's just a small car accident. It's not that serious." Whether it was that serious or not, they should know in their hearts. At the time, Mu Zichu went to see Feng Fei he in the Mu family. She was lying in bed and couldn't even speak. Only a few days later, she could get out of bed. Such an incredible thing. I believe that Mu Zhenming was suspicious. However, this would make Feng Fei he look really good, and no one would suspect anything else. Qiao Jin nodded and stopped talking. Feng Fei he looked at Qiao Jin and suppressed the dissatisfaction in her eyes. She smiled and said, "This time, other than thanking uncle and auntie for their care, I also want to formally invite Miss Qiao and your brothers to my birthday party." As she spoke, she placed her hand on the back of her mother's hand, looking haggard after recovering from an illness. This incident has frightened my parents. Since it's my birthday, let's take this opportunity to wash away the bad luck. Also, thank you for your concern. Xiao Fei answered without hesitation, of course we will come to your birthday party. Feng Fei he looked at Xiao Jin with anticipation. Miss Xiao, will you come? Xiao Jin and Feng Fei he were not familiar with each other. Logically speaking, there was no reason for him to go. However, the Mu family and Feng Yongsha had a cooperation, so it was normal for Mu Zhenming to bring his children there. Mu Zhenming and Xiao Fei also looked at Xiao Jin. Although they all wanted to go, they had to see Xiao Jin's intention. Unexpectedly, Xiao Jin smiled and raised his lips. Okay, I will definitely go. They came with bad intentions. The Feng family probably felt something, so they wanted to lure Xiao Jin to the Feng family. It had to be said that they had some perception. At least there were a lot of people who had a grudge against Feng Fei he. They could lock the target on her and suspect her so quickly. They still had some ability. But it was just suspicion. When they lured him to the Feng family, they would naturally know what happened in the territory of the Array Master. The Feng family was not worried about Feng Fei he, but that someone had mastered the method of borrowing luck to target the Feng family. Chapter 135. Their family itself was not doing glorious things. If they were targeted, there would be a serious backlash. The Feng family's reputation and wealth would all be gone. How could they not be afraid? The Song family could find out that something was wrong with Xiao Jin, and the Feng family would also feel it. Xiao Jin was one of their suspects. This birthday banquet was an excuse. Xiao Jin's promise made Mu Zhenming nod slightly. At least he didn't disrespect the Feng family. The Feng family was a partner. Mu Zhenming didn't want to see Xiao Jin do anything willful. Of course, even if she didn't agree, Mu Zhenming had already thought of an excuse at that moment because Xiao Jin's brain was not right. Now he didn't need to think of an excuse. At least he was relieved. Seeing that Xiao Jin agreed, Xiao Fei also said, of course, we will all come. Fei, don't worry. She smiled like a naive and sweet girl who didn't know anything. Seeing that Xiao Jin agreed, Feng Fei he breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, as long as she stayed in the Mu family, she felt uncomfortable all over her body. It was as if something was peeping at her from the unseen world. It made her feel uncomfortable all over. She also had this feeling in the Feng family's main residence. It was different from the coldness of the Feng family. In the Mu family, it was pure oppression. It seemed that even her thoughts could be seen through. Since Xiao Jin agreed now, Feng Fei he didn't want to stay any longer. She excused herself that she was still not feeling well and left with her parents. After they left, Xiao Fei couldn't hide her words. She asked her husband curiously, didn't you say it was very serious? Now I look like I'm alive and kicking. Mu Zhenming was a little speechless about her description, but after thinking about it, he also said in a deep voice, I'm not sure. The Feng family had always been weird. There were many rumors in the business world. Those who competed with the Feng family for business or went against them for so many years didn't end well. The key was that nothing could be seen on the surface. After so many years, it had long been noticed by others, but no one had been able to find out the reason behind it. It could only be attributed to some strange phenomenon. However, no matter how much they thought about it, they couldn't possibly think of it as some fantasy. With the Mu clan status, they were still unable to come into contact with that kind of world for the time being. Even the Song clan did not know much about it. Mu Zhenming looked at Xiao Jin. What do you think? Xiao Jin, After a while, she looked a little puzzled. Zhenming, why are you asking me such a strange thing? I'm not familiar with Feng Fei. Maybe Chi Chu didn't see it clearly. Mu Zhenming, every time Xiao Jin called his name, Mu Zhenming was still not used to it. Xiao Fei was already used to it. She didn't want to think about anything complicated. She suddenly complained, will Zhenming's father come over next week? Xiao Jin was interested in the main character of Xiao Fei and Mu Zhenming's melodramatic story. Zhenming's father? Xiao Fei, yes, he's your grandfather. Xiao Jin nodded. Anyone who comes is a guest. You guys treat him well. Mu Zhenming, Qiao Fei, grandfather, do you understand what grandfather means? Mu Zhenming's father was full of resentment when he was pushed out of the country. If he came back and saw Qiao Jin, he would probably have high blood pressure, right? Qiao Fei suddenly felt a little worried. Seeing that Qiao Jin was about to leave, Mu Zhenming's eyes were a little strict. Where did you go this morning? Chapter 136. The Song Family. Qiao Jin answers directly, I went to see Song Yanqing. Qiao Fei's eyes stare like copper bells. It's one thing to know it on the phone. It's another thing to know it now. When did you have such a good relationship with the young master of the Song family? Qiao Jin says naturally, friends. Qiao Fei, why haven't I heard that other people are Song Yanqing's friends? She feels that this is beyond her knowledge. She looks up at her husband for help. Mu Zhenming has a headache about Qiao Jin and the Song family. He doesn't want to ask more at all. Now he just asks casually. Seeing Qiao Jin's calm attitude, he doesn't care about her. You should pay attention to yourself. The Song family is more mysterious than the Feng family. Song Yanqing is especially important. Now Qiao Jin is in contact with the biggest treasure of the Song family. Song Shiyin doesn't think that Qiao Jin is in danger. He won't care about this kind of superfluous thing. If the Song family doesn't like it, they would have reminded the Mu family. But Qiao Fei is still scared by Qiao Jin's shocking remarks. Now the Song family acts as if nothing has happened. They even let Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin contact each other by themselves. His breadth of mind was magnanimous. Qiao Jin smiles softly and doesn't explain more to them. She goes upstairs and puts the things she brings back on the table. Song Yanqing's notes and the book. She just read it on the way. Now she sits down and reads the book back and forth while she has nothing to do in the afternoon. The compiler of the book is Zhongli Wuyo. She doesn't know whether it is a pseudonym or his real name. Qiao Jin uses the magic circle to calculate the name. Unexpectedly, he is really a psychic. He even has a bloodline that has been passed down to this day. Qiao Jin did not have any special information he needed to know for the time being, so he stopped the calculations. He had written a lot of information about Meigai, but there were a few array points in the book. He had obviously been pointed out by others, and there were even corresponding symbols. The corresponding areas of the array points were taken out and compared with the map. It turned out that they were all occupied by the current giant groups. Qiao Jin looked at the book thoughtfully. This should be a book that would be very useful to normal people. Many of the places mentioned in the book were treasured lands formed by natural array points. Of course, there were also places of murder. Qiao Jin was not very interested, but for a wizard to know so much about the array points of a sorcerer, what kind of guidance did he have? It was not easy to find, suppress, and make use of these places. She chuckled. At this moment, He Yaro's call came. The other party sounded a little guilty. Miss Qiao, can you come out tonight? Qiao Jin looked up. Whether I come or not, the end result will be the same, so I don't want to waste my time. He Yaro, she sounded a little relieved. You know, Qiao Jin said, you can tell the people around you that I won't be of any use even if I go. I won't join your organization, and I don't have the ability to predict the future like you think. Of course, I won't tell you what I am. He Yaro sighed. I understand what you mean. She glanced at the person in the distance. But Miss Qiao, this matter is a little troublesome. Can you just come and meet me? Chapter 137. He Yaro had been interrogated by the spirit group, and with Yu Xie's report, Qiao Jin's matter could not be kept a secret. Indeed, just as Qiao Jin said, the spirit group was helpless against Qiao Jin. They investigated Qiao Jin's information but could not find any clues. The fact that she was a psychic was confirmed, but the ability to foresee was very tempting. Even if Qiao Jin did not want to be involved, it did not mean that no one coveted her. The headquarters sent people to investigate Qiao Jin's matter. Generally, when the spirit group found a psychic or demonized psychic, they would be dealt with. Ordinary psychic with abilities would be recruited into the group. Those who were unwilling would be monitored by the spirit group. After all, they were too much of a threat to ordinary people. Of course, very few people could endure the constant monitoring and would eventually join the spirit group. Only a few could ignore the monitoring and live like ordinary people. As for Qiao Jin, if she was unwilling to join, the Mu family would be affected. Of course, Qiao Jin did not care about this, because that kind of monitoring was too laughable for her. But when she heard He Yaro's words, she hesitated for a moment, and finally said slowly, "Okay, then I'll come out once." She spent an entire afternoon reading this book, so she could go out and rest. When she went down, it was already dinner time. Qiao Fei was sitting at the dining table when he saw Qiao Jin coming down. He said happily, "Jin, you're here on time, it's time to eat." Qiao Jin shook her head and said, "I won't eat, I have something to do." Qiao Fei was surprised. "What are you going to do?" "Qiao Jin, disco." Qiao Fei, with this sentence, Qiao Fei felt that he was going to have a heart attack. "You're going to disco? Why are you?" Before he could finish speaking, Qiao Jin said, "I'm joking, someone asked me out for dinner." Qiao Fei, although Qiao Jin explained in time, Qiao Fei still didn't believe him. "Who asked you out for dinner?" "Song Yanqing." It was no wonder that she dared to make such a guess. After all, the only friend that Qiao Jin had mentioned was Song Yanqing. Other than that, Qiao Fei couldn't think of anyone else who could directly ask Qiao Jin out. Qiao Jin, just one person. He Yaro's identity was special, so it wasn't appropriate for him to reveal it. "Qiao Fei, you're talking as if you've never met a human being before." Even so, she couldn't stop Qiao Jin if he wanted to go out. She just complained, "Mom went to Sakura Island, and I haven't shown you the things I brought for you." Qiao Jin smiled and said, "You can show me when I'm back. I'll be back soon." Qiao Fei looked at her. "Then you have to wait for a while. Your big brother is going on a business trip again. He's flying out tonight. Let your big brother send you there." Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows. At this moment, Mu Chiji also came down in a well-ironed suit. He even casually put on his tie. His movements were suave and elegant. Qiao Fei immediately said, "Chiji, your sister is going out. If you're going to the airport, see if you can give her a ride." At the same time, Kangkang's friends weren't shameful at all. Mu Chiji looked at Qiao Jin with disapproval in his eyes. "Why are you going out again?" Qiao Jin said concisely with a familiar excuse. "Disco." Mu Chiji, Qiao Jin was very rebellious, and not just any kind of rebellious. Not long after the family meeting, she started to rebel. Chapter 138. Qiao Fei saw Mu Chiji's darkening face and hurriedly said, "She's just spouting nonsense. She's just going to meet a friend." At this point, she even displayed her authority as a mother. "You're not allowed to go to the disco. If you do, I'll break your legs." Qiao Jin. Coincidentally, Musilian also rushed downstairs. "Mom, I won't be eating dinner. My friend asked me out and I'm going to the disco." Qiao Fei's face turned stern when she saw that her son, who had just reprimanded Qiao Jin, had come out to undermine her. "You're not allowed to go. If you do, I'll break your legs." Musilian. He looked around and saw that Mu Chiji had not left. He felt a little guilty. However, he looked at Qiao Fei blankly. "Why? I'm just going to have fun. I won't do anything rash. Mom, you know me." Qiao Fei had never interfered when he went to the disco. Mu Chiji added, "In the future, no one is allowed to go to the disco. This is the family rule. If you go, I'll deduct your pocket money." Musilian. Was he still human? This was Musilian's weakness, not Qiao Jin's. She walked downstairs. "Big brother isn't going the same way as me. I'll go by myself." Musilian looked at Qiao Jin with bulging eyes and then asked Qiao Fei, "Where is she going?" Before Qiao Fei could say anything, Qiao Jin said lazily, "To the disco." "Everyone." Musilian looked at Qiao Jin, who was striding away. Then, he looked at Qiao Fei and suddenly felt indignant. "Why are you targeting me?" Qiao Fei, at this moment, she felt very tired. The child had grown up. It was time for him to be rebellious. Especially Qiao Jin's rebellious period. It came later than anyone else and was stronger than anyone else. It took him some time to arrive at the place where he had agreed to meet He Yao. Since it was a meeting and he was a spiritual reader, he didn't choose a particularly crowded place. There was a shopping mall. Although it was located in the downtown area, it didn't seem to be doing very well. There were very few people in the entire shopping mall. Especially the dining area on the top floor, there were not many people there. It was very quiet, but it was very suitable for talking. When Xiao Jin walked over, he saw that He Yao was the only familiar face he had met today. The other two people were a man and a woman. It exuded a very powerful aura. They were not simple spiritual readers. What was interesting was that not only did they have an aura, but they also wore expensive branded clothes. The accessories on their wrists and necks showed that even if they were spiritual readers, they were not from ordinary families. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. They looked very close, so they should be brother and sister. He Yao saw Xiao Jin and waved at him. The two of them looked at her at the same time. At the same time, Xiao Jin felt a force invading his body. He sized it up very impolitely. She smiled lightly and did nothing. The force only invaded Xiao Jin's body for a second before it was blocked by a powerful backlash. At the same time, the girl's face turned pale. The boy glanced at Xiao Jin and noticed the change in his sister. He immediately asked in a deep voice, "Peining, what's wrong?" The girl shook her head and glanced at Xiao Jin. There was a trace of fear in her eyes. She only said one word to her brother silently, "Dangerous." The boy's expression changed. His sister was a spiritual reader. If she said that someone was dangerous, then it must be someone they couldn't deal with. He then looked at Xiao Jin. She was wearing a mini summer pineapple patterned knee-length dress. She exuded innocence, and her face was calm. It was as if she did not feel anything. He could not tell that she was dangerous at all. Chapter 139. She looked like the daughter of a wealthy family who had gone out to play. She exuded a kind of peace that was incompatible with a spiritual reader. Xiao Jin walked in front of them and sat down without waiting for them to speak. The table was rectangular, and He Yao and the two people on the opposite side sat together, while she sat alone on the other side. She put her hand on the table and smiled. "Hello, I'm Xiao Jin." Although they knew Xiao Jin's identity, they still nodded when they saw Xiao Jin being polite. "Hello, I'm Zhongli Shiyu." The girl looked even more timid. "Hello, I'm Zhongli Peining." Xiao Jin gave her a very dangerous feeling. Only stupid people would directly provoke dangerous people. Although they came from the spirit group, Xiao Jin gave her such a dangerous feeling. She didn't dare to provoke Xiao Jin. In a way, it was quite wise. Xiao Jin heard their names and was a little surprised. The Zhongli family? She had just finished reading a book written by a member of the Zhongli family and calculated that he had descendants in the world. She didn't expect that someone from the Zhongli family would appear so coincidentally. He Yao was also a little surprised. "You know about the Zhongli family?" If spiritual readers had a history, then the Zhongli family was undoubtedly an aristocratic family with an inheritance in the world of spiritual readers. There was a particularly strange thing about the Zhongli family. Every generation that was born in their family would at least have a spiritual reader. Their family was also one of the few families that allowed ordinary people to know about spiritual readers. Therefore, the Zhongli family was quite famous in the world of spiritual readers. Xiao Jin seemed to be an outsider, but He Yao felt that Xiao Jin should know some information. Now that she even knew about the Zhongli family, she had some expectations in her heart. Xiao Jin slowly shook her head. "I don't know, I just found out." Zhongli Peining knew that Xiao Jin was in danger, but seeing that Xiao Jin's performance was very calm, she opened her eyes and asked her curiously, "Where did you find out about our Zhongli clan?" Ordinary people would not know what kind of existence the Zhongli family was. They would only think of them as an ordinary merchant family. If Xiao Jin was a spiritual reader who had suddenly appeared, then he shouldn't have known this information. "I learned of it by chance. It's not very detailed." Xiao Jin gave a simple explanation. He looked at the two of them and said, "It's not appropriate for us to talk about this matter. Why don't you say what you want to say?" Zhongli Peining and Zhongli Shiyu looked at each other. Finally, Zhongli Shiyu spoke. He took out a document from his clothes. He Yarrow told us about you, so we'll get straight to the point. We were sent by the spirit group to recruit you. We want to know if your ability suddenly appeared or if it had always been there. Of course, they already knew the answer in their hearts. If it had always been there, Qiao Jin would not have committed suicide. It was obvious that after the suicide, he was stimulated and his ability appeared. Qiao Jin raised his lips. Do I have to tell you? Her attitude, to be honest, was not very cooperative. He Yarrow had always known that Qiao Jin would be difficult to deal with, but the spirit group was not an ordinary organization. If they were to clash head-on, Qiao Jin might be able to deal with one or two spiritualists, but would she be able to deal with a large group? Zhongli Shiyu knew that Qiao Jin was dangerous. He had also seen many spiritual readers like Qiao Jin who were very arrogant when they had the ability. At this moment, his expression was relatively gentle. We just want to know some basic information. This will be good for you. Chapter 140. The benefit is that you think it's an honor to recruit me into the spirit group. The waiter came over to help Qiao Jin pour a cup of hot lemon water. Qiao Jin picked up the cup and took a sip, saying, "It's not an honor for me, it's just a hassle." Zhongli Shiyu's face was a little ugly. Generally, after knowing the existence of the spirit group, a spiritual reader would at least show a look of surprise. Moreover, after knowing that the spirit group had many spiritual readers, they would put away their contempt. Qiao Jin in front of him was not looking down on them. At least her attitude from beginning to end revealed a kind of indifference to the spirit group. Wasn't this contempt? The spirit group was originally established by his ancestors. Zhongli Shiyu could not bear to see its existence belittle. At this time, he frowned slightly and slowly said, "If you think it's troublesome, Miss Qiao, we can only tell you very clearly that if you don't choose to join, it will be more troublesome. In order to protect the safety of ordinary people, we will monitor spiritual readers like you. If you think it doesn't matter, then you cannot join the spirit group." Originally, he thought that Qiao Jin would at least feel a little offended. Unexpectedly, she shrugged indifferently, "Up to you. If you have the ability to monitor, then monitor." Zhongli Shiyu opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but Zhongli Peining reached out and pulled her brother's sleeve. She was a detection spiritual reader and her perception was also very strong. She felt that if Zhongli Shiyu continued to speak, it might anger the spiritual reader in front of him. She knew her brother's temper and only whispered, "Brother, if she doesn't want to join, then forget it." In the past, there were spiritual readers who did not join the spirit group. This society was still free. As long as the other party did not do anything that violated the rules, they had no way to force the other party. Zhongli Shiyu faintly pursed his lips. No matter why, he was a little unhappy with Qiao Jin's attitude. He Yarrow knew that these two were from the Zhongli family and were naturally arrogant. Zhongli Peining was slightly better, but Zhongli Shiyu was already a core member of the spirit group headquarters at such a young age. He might be provoked by Qiao Jin's attitude. She immediately said, "If Miss Qiao doesn't mind, then let's forget about this matter." Zhongli Shiyu only looked at Qiao Jin. Joining or not is one's freedom. If Miss Qiao doesn't care about our surveillance, we naturally won't force her. However, shouldn't Miss Qiao explain that Team 3, which is team leader He Yarrow's team, captured 2 demonized psychic masters' spirit seeds that disappeared? And when these 2 things happened, you were nearby. What does this have to do with me? Qiao Jin looked incredulous. What do you think I did? She did it, but they couldn't find any evidence. They originally had suspicions. Now that Qiao Jin directly denied it, they couldn't continue to ask. The main thing was that this deep-rooted thought was in her mind. Qiao Jin already had the ability to predict. If she could still seize a spirit seed, then what could the spirit seed be used for? Why did it have to be a demonized psychic master? Zhongli Shiyu took a deep look at Qiao Jin. "I hope that Miss Qiao won't do anything that will hinder the safety of ordinary people. It's already not easy to maintain a peaceful situation in this society. We also won't allow anyone to destroy it. Of course, I understand your hard work." Qiao Jin nodded. Her attitude towards every word that Zhongli Shiyu said was very indifferent. She wasn't angry, nor did she explain. Chapter 141. The stubborn Qiao Jin made the Zhongli siblings retreat in defeat. However, as soon as Qiao Jin rejected them, they would start monitoring him. The abilities of a spiritualist were complicated. Some spiritualists could directly monitor other people's tracks from afar, which was more useful than surveillance cameras. Qiao Jin couldn't escape if he could endure this kind of monitoring. The two from the Zhongli family retreated quickly. In the end, only He Yarou and Qiao Jin were left. He Yarou sighed and said, "Even if you reject them, they won't let it go. They will definitely check your abilities. So be it." Qiao Jin smiled and said, "As long as they don't interfere with me, they can do whatever they want." As for monitoring, did he have the ability? A small array formation was enough to fool their eyes. He Yarou suddenly said in a low voice, "I didn't tell them about the spirit seed of the demonized spiritualist you told me about." At least back then, Qiao Jin had honestly said that she needed the demonized spiritualist seed. He Yarou didn't say anything about this. Even she didn't know what she was thinking. "It doesn't matter if you say it or not." Qiao Jin smiled brightly. "You just have to say it. They need evidence." He Yarou, yes, who could prove that Qiao Jin had said this? Even if she said it, the spirit group still needed to check. He Yarou had a conflicted feeling about Qiao Jin's existence. From the first time they met, she had an inexplicable fear of Qiao Jin. Yes, fear. Whether it was the first time they met or the confrontation at the police station. He Yarou always felt that Qiao Jin wasn't on the same level as her. Therefore, she subconsciously wouldn't do anything to go against Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin stood up and said, "Anyway, thank you. I'll treat you to this meal." He Yarou looked at the 4 glasses of water on the table. She didn't even know if the restaurant would accept money. However, Qiao Jin still took 100 yuan and left. He Yarou thought for a moment, then packed a basket of braised food from the store and brought it back. "Forget it, I'll just treat it as supper for the people in the group." On the way home, Qiao Jin felt that the surveillance had begun, but she didn't care at all. The surveillance would only target her and not the Mu family. However, as long as they were in the Mu clan, they would not be able to sense anything. Even if they had doubts in their hearts, they would not come to find trouble with Qiao Jin. This was because they also understood that a person whom they did not understand and even found mysterious had the ability to prevent them from spying on him. If they angered him, it would be a very unwise move. That little girl, Zhongli Peining, was a spiritual reader. At most, she seemed to be dangerous on the surface, but in reality, she was far more dangerous than Zhongli Peining knew. However, her level was too low. She could not see Qiao Jin's true strength at all. This meeting was very short. Qiao Fei saw that Qiao Jin came back quickly and was relieved. Even if it was a disco, it wouldn't be so fast, right? Moreover, the people she secretly sent to follow Qiao Jin had already said that Qiao Jin really did meet with a few friends, even if Qiao Fei didn't know those friends. However, as long as they didn't go to inappropriate places, everything would be fine. After saying goodbye to Qiao Fei, Qiao Jin prepared to go back to take a shower and rest. However, as soon as she entered her room, she felt that the sky had darkened. It was already night time, so the darkness was not ordinary. She turned her head and saw the ferocious face of a demon outside the window. It was staring at her fiercely. If this was a horror movie, it would not feel out of place. Chapter 142. Because she had blocked Song Yanqing, this group of devils had chased her here in exasperation. Qiao Jin had the demonized spirit seed, so they had a way to let Qiao Jin see them. Qiao Jin lowered her eyes. "Actually, I don't really want to see you. You're too ugly, so annoying." Her voice couldn't be transmitted to the Rakshasa world, but she had a powerful ability to communicate directly. In other words, she didn't even have a channel to communicate with them if she wasn't strong enough. They had something to pursue and were very straightforward about everything. Knowing that it was Qiao Jin who ruined their good deeds, they were full of malice towards Qiao Jin. However, seeing the powerful array protection on her body, they knew that she was not to be trifled with. Even if she was just an ordinary spiritual reader, she still needed to use her mind to seduce them. If the other party's mind was strong, there was basically no chance. Otherwise, how could there be the difference between a decent spiritual reader and a demonized spiritual reader? If they wanted to attack Qiao Jin, they couldn't do it with their ability. However, they were so angry that it aroused Qiao Jin's interest. She pulled a stool and sat by the window, facing the devil, scratching her chin thoughtfully. I just made him unable to see you. This is a good thing for society. Why are you so angry? Ordinary people were not worthy of the Rakshasa world's attention to this extent. Was it really what she thought? The devil just flapped its wings and stood outside the window, looking at her coldly. After a while, it suddenly approached the window. For a moment, it seemed to want to come in directly from the window. But it just stood there, allowing Qiao Jin to see every groove on its face, as well as its cruel black eyes. A voice from hell that could make people fall came. It only said 3 words. You will die. The devil's voice could directly make people fall, which was completely different from mind seduction. However, to transmit the voice from the Rakshasa world to this world, it had to pay a huge price. The price was just to say these 3 words. Qiao Jin didn't need to analyze to hear the gnashing of teeth in it, as if Qiao Jin had killed its whole family. She touched a very important interest of the Rakshasa world. This benefit belonged to Song Yanqing. Qiao Jin suddenly said playfully, I'm not happy when you say that. In order not to disappoint you, I've decided to check in front of him every day to let me know if it's what I think it is. She paused and waved at the demon outside the window. She smiled and said, goodbye. In an instant, the demon was like a bubble, disappearing without a trace. The world returned to normal. Qiao Jin touched his chin and took the initiative to send a WeChat message to Song Yanqing. Mr. Song, are you free tomorrow? It was only 9 o'clock in the evening. Normally, Song Yanqing would not be asleep. However, she was wrong. Song Yanqing went to bed early every day because of his health. He went to bed at 8 o'clock sharp. He was simply a modern model. Even if there was work to do, he could not be bothered. He didn't see Qiao Jin's message until he woke up at 6 o'clock the next day. Song Yanqing, he couldn't help but smile. The child's schedule didn't seem to be very good, and he didn't see it. He didn't know if she would think of other things. Song Yanqing, sorry, I go to bed at 8 o'clock every day. If you have anything in the future, you can call me directly. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. Song Yanqing put down his phone and was about to wash up. Who knew that as soon as he put down his phone, he heard a WeChat message. Chapter 143. He lowered his head and saw that Qiao Jin had replied to his message. It was from Jin Yo. It's good to sleep early and wake up early. When he saw this name, Song Yanqing's mind would think of the girl who looked cold and indifferent with a hint of weirdness. This childish name didn't suit her. Song Yanqing curled his lips. For the first time in his life, he took the initiative to change someone's name. Amazing kid, to him, the 20-year-old Qiao Jin was just a kid. After he was done, he slowly replied to Qiao Jin's message. He really wasn't good at typing on the keyboard. Song Yanqing, why are you awake so early? Did the message wake you up? Amazing kid, no, I woke up naturally. It doesn't matter if she can sleep long enough. She can open her eyes whenever she wants. It's normal for messages to wake her up. She'll be awake when she wakes up. She won't be delirious. Amazing kid, do you have time recently? Song Yanqing, yes. He was very busy, but there was a limit to how busy he could be. After all, his body didn't allow him to overwork himself. However, it wasn't difficult to meet Qiao Jin when he was free. Amazing kid, I want to know what's wrong with you. Amazing kid, typing is so troublesome. Let's meet and talk. I'll send you a message after class in the afternoon. Song Yanqing, he actually wanted to say that he could send a voice message. However, it was good to see her, so he replied with an okay. Seeing that Qiao Jin didn't reply, he put down his phone and went to wash up. Qiao Jin also got out of bed. She woke up early and had class early. She could go out for a run or two. However, she had a premonition. After washing up, she went to her cat treasure shop to take a look. Sure enough, there was a new message. Besides Lynn's size matter about her sister, there was a new order. Looking at the time, it was 3:30 in the morning. Actually, she had a premonition, but she was too lazy to get up to reply. She glanced at the person who left the order. The person who made the reservation was anonymous. He only asked if the customer service was available. No customer service staff would still be waiting at the store at 3:30. Xiao Jin replied. "Today, I'm here now. Dear, what do you want to know?" She replied to the message but did not go out. Instead, she lay back on the bed. As expected, the other party replied in less than 20 seconds. Anonymous buyer XX, your customer service woke up so early. Anonymous buyer XX, I don't know what I'm doing either. I just want to know about someone. Anonymous buyer XX, it's okay if you can't find it. It's been many years. She sounded a little disappointed when she said this. Today, are you celebrities so busy that you've been working through the night? Fan Jin's hand that was holding the phone froze when she heard the customer service's words. Her pretty face revealed a hint of shock, and she even subconsciously raised her head to look to the side. His assistant was dozing off beside him. Other than that, there was no one else in the lounge. However, the customer service's words made her hair stand on end. The information she posted on Cat Treasure was fake. It was impossible for her to reveal her identity as a celebrity. How did he know that she was a celebrity? Fan Jin was too shocked. She quickly typed back. Anonymous buyer XX, how did you know? The other party replied with the demeanor of an expert. Today, you're here for fortune-telling. Do you need a reason? Fan Jin, she stared at the message in a daze. Did she really find a capable fortune-telling shop? Chapter 144. Fan Jin was a celebrity, and a famous one at that. She wasn't stunningly beautiful, but she was very recognizable. She had acted as the female lead and later entered the film industry. Her movie became very popular and earned more than 1 billion yuan at the box office. She even won the Best Actress award. She had a high status in the industry. Although she wasn't as famous as those popular little fresh meats or young actresses, anyone who saw her would have to politely call her elder sister. Because of this, she knew that there was a lot of gossip in the industry. Most of the information on the internet was fake. If news of this kind of fortune-telling were to spread, it would be another joke. She had a knot in her heart that she had been depressed for many years. She even suffered from depression because of it. Now that she had recovered, she was too shocked by an incident not long ago. She let her imagination run wild and realized that she wasn't in a good mood. She felt that something was wrong and was afraid that her depression would relapse. Only she knew how terrible it was to suffer from depression. The constant despair was oppressive and suffocating. She had lost her pursuit of life. She wanted an answer, but as a celebrity, she couldn't be too high profile. Moreover, many people were watching her. She was just randomly searching for relevant information on the internet, not for fortune-telling. She didn't expect to find such a fortune-telling shop on Cat Treasure. Of course, the fortune-telling was fake, but she just wanted to be at ease. As long as she confirmed it, it was fine. After a few minutes of silence, she sent the person's name and information. This was a knot that had been there for more than 10 years. Today, this information is fake. Tell me your date of birth. Fan Jin's hand trembled. The name was fake. How could it be? This was the name she had been calling for many years. Her face turned pale. She didn't tell the shop owner first. She only asked, even the birthday information is fake. Today, it's fake. There's no such person. Fan Jin's face turned even paler. It would be fine if the shop owner was just randomly calculating, but she said it so confidently that Fan Jin was at a loss. She sent her date of birth to the shop owner. The shop owner replied 3 minutes later. Today, according to the information you said, you actually want to confirm whether a man is dead or not, right? Today, and you saw him a few days ago. You're suspicious. Today, he's not dead. He lied to you. Fan Jin was so shocked that she dropped her phone and covered her mouth reflexively. She had just randomly found a fortune-telling shop, but with just a few words of information from her, the other party even knew that she had seen that person recently. No one knew about this. No one should know about it. She didn't know what was wrong with her. She was almost out of breath. She covered her mouth, and big drops of tears fell uncontrollably from her usually strong and proud face. Even she didn't know why she was crying. When the assistant heard the phone ringing, she was jolted awake. When she saw Fan Jin covering her mouth with tears streaming down her face, she was shocked awake. Sis, what's wrong? What's wrong? Aren't you getting too into character? The assistant's first thought was that Fan Jin was too immersed in the filming and ended up getting too immersed in the character. Fan Jin covered her mouth. She didn't know what was wrong with her. Usually, she could control her tears when she was filming, but now, she couldn't control them. She couldn't even make a sound. Her tears kept falling, and she even bit the back of her hand. He didn't die. He really didn't die. His eyes weren't playing tricks on him that day. Chapter 145. In the end, she burst into tears. She couldn't hold it in any longer and started bawling. She covered her face and fell into extreme sadness. The assistant was dumbfounded as her voice started to tremble. Sister Fan Jin, what's wrong? What happened? Did something happen at home? She had never seen Fan Jin like this before. Fan Jin had always been calm and composed in the industry. At least, no one had ever seen her lose control of her emotions. This sudden outburst of crying really scared the assistant. The assistant was afraid that someone would overhear and gossip would spread, which would negatively affect her. She picked up Fan Jin's phone from the floor. The screen happened to light up and she saw the conversation. Why did it seem a little strange? She didn't dare to look any longer, so she quickly stuffed the phone into Fan Jin's hands. Fan Jin was aware of her current identity. Although she was devastated, she only lost control of her emotions in the beginning. In the end, she tried her best to stop herself from crying. However, her crying made the assistant's heart ache. What exactly did she go through to make her cry like this? Her crying made the assistant's heart clench. The assistant had watched Fan Jin act for a long time. No matter how immersed she was, she never felt as heartbroken as she did at this moment. Fan Jin cried for a long time, but Xiao Jin didn't send her a message. She was almost 30 years old. When she found out the secret that had been buried for so many years, she realized that the knot in her heart might be a joke. This was a huge blow to her. About 10 minutes later, Fan Jin finally caught her breath. She still couldn't control the sadness on her face. After a long time, she grabbed her phone and sent Xiao Jin a message. Anonymous buyer XX, why hasn't he come looking for me for so many years? Today, you should know, shouldn't you? She knew that the person she thought was dead was still alive. All these years, he didn't come looking for her. If he didn't lose his memory, then he must have done it on purpose. However, Fan Jin couldn't accept this at all. What could have happened that made him not come looking for her for so many years? More than 10 years ago, they relied on each other. She thought he had passed away in an accident. At that time, she was completely disheartened and wished she could die with him. If he was still alive and didn't come looking for her, then what was the point of everything she did? She even suffered from depression because of this. Thinking of this, the tears that had dried up seemed to be unable to stop. The assistant was beside her anxiously, but seeing that she was holding her phone to reply to a message, she did not dare to ask. Anonymous buyer XX, maybe he has his reasons. Today, then that's not something I should ask. You've already gotten the answer you wanted. You need to verify the extra information yourself. When Fan Jin saw this sentence, her tears fell again. Was this fortune teller telling the truth? Actually, from the moment Fan Jin mentioned her guess, she already knew that this fortune-telling shop was really capable. However, the knot in her heart couldn't be solved by fortune-telling. Thinking of this, Fan Jin sent a message to Xiao Jin, thank you. Today, you're welcome, customer. It's not worth it to cry too much. She obviously knew more, but she would not tell Fan Jin. This kind of thing didn't need to be calculated. Fan Jin only needed to verify it, and she would know everything that she needed to know. Fan Jin looked at this sentence in a daze. Her tears were still wet, and she looked a little sluggish. Chapter 146. Fan Jin glanced at her assistant and her assistant said carefully, "Sister Fan Jin, if you don't want to tell me, then forget it." Fan Jin looked at her and smiled. Her smile carried a hint of sadness. She opened her mouth and said in a hoarse voice from crying, "Tell me, when a person thought he was dead, they were heartbroken and in despair. They were so sad that they fell into depression and even tried to commit suicide twice. In the end, they found out that he wasn't dead, but after so many years, they never came looking for you. What was the reason?" The assistant was a little dumbfounded. Didn't this story sound a little pitiful? She thought about all the ridiculous dramas she had seen in the entertainment industry and carefully guessed, perhaps he lost his memory and forgot about the past. Or perhaps he didn't think it was necessary. It wasn't necessary. The assistant's words were like a needle piercing into Fan Jin's body. 16 years, a whole 16 years. From a young girl to a mature woman, 16 years. She had been heartbroken and depressed for 16 years because of this person that she thought was dead. How long could the friendship of youth last? The answer was, a very long time. Fan Jin's fingernails dug into her palms, but she couldn't feel any pain. She couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept it. Even if she had to hear him say it to her face, she still wanted to know why. Did he lose his memory, or did he have difficulties, or did he not take their relationship seriously? There had to be a reason. After so many years, no one knew how shocked she was when she saw him appear at a banquet. The assistant could guess what was going on. She was a little shocked that something like this had actually happened to Fan Jin. Depression and suicide twice. Wasn't that too scary? She couldn't imagine that something like this had happened to Fan Jin. Fan Jin wiped away her tears and stood up. Although her face was still pale, she slowly regained some of her original elegance. She asked her assistant in a hoarse voice, "Do you know the vice president of the Fran Group that appeared at the opening banquet of the Fran Group's branch in China a few days ago?" The assistant. She knew who the vice CEO was, but she wasn't qualified to be there. She had only heard about him from others. He was in his 30s, had a handsome appearance and was the focus of the banquet. But he had a fiancée. She faintly sensed that something was going to happen. Fan Jin said, "I want to know how to contact him." The assistant blinked and quickly said, okay. I'll find a way to get it." She knew that if Fan Jin didn't change her mind, no one would be able to change her mind. Although Sister Fan Jin looked very sad, as an assistant, she should endure it, but she was too curious about this matter. One of them was the young and promising vice president of a Fortune 500 company. It was said that he had a great background. The other was a female celebrity with a high status in the industry. Depression and suicide. Damn it, just a little bit of information would probably be the most shocking news of the year. Fan Jin lowered her gaze and wiped her face with a wet tissue. Her eyes were already hurting from crying. She calmed down and looked at her phone again. She sent a message to Xiao Jin. "Anonymous buyer XX, I still want to calculate. Today, dear, you've already calculated the most important thing. You can't continue to calculate. Anonymous buyer XX, I can continue to place an order, the most expensive one. Today, money isn't important. What's important is that we can't let it go." Fan Jin was a little surprised. What was wrong with this fortune-telling shop? Why didn't they want to earn money? Chapter 147. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't want to earn money. If Xiao Jin really wanted to earn money, he wouldn't have cared about this. They had to pay the price for using extreme means to know something in advance, and it had nothing to do with Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin could even talk about the important points of their lives, but if you knew what would happen to you in the future, wouldn't your fate change? That was the price to pay. A person's life was destined. If you knew something in advance, You would definitely need something to make up for it in the future. Now, Xiao Jin was only collecting some money. This money was to compensate them for this harmless matter. If they wanted to know more, it wouldn't be about money. Fate was a mysterious thing, and so was karma. Who didn't want to know the rest of their life? But no. No matter how Fan Jin asked, Xiao Jin didn't reply. According to a customer service, this kind of attitude could be complained about. However, Fan Jin only felt enlightened and didn't have any intention of complaining. There were many people in the industry who came into contact with such things, and there were even superstitions about raising ghosts. It wasn't that Fan Jin hadn't seen such things before, but now that it had happened to her, it was a little inconceivable that such a mysterious person would open a fortune-telling shop online. However, no matter how inconceivable it was, she still encountered it. Fan Jin tactfully stopped pestering this customer service master. Xiao Jin wasn't comforting a stranger for no reason, but when he was reading her fortune, he actually saw that this person would be involved with him in real life. However, Xiao Jin still had to wait and see where this involvement came from. The other party was a big star, and usually, she was surrounded by stars. It wasn't easy for her to be involved with an ordinary university student like Xiao Jin. Once there was any information about herself, it would be very vague. Otherwise, she wouldn't even know her own life. She still had her own things to do, so she didn't take such a small matter to heart. Fan Jin had been filming all night, and her body was exhausted. However, after the fortune-telling, her mind was extremely clear. Even if her body was tired, she couldn't fall asleep on the bed. Fortunately, she did not attract any attention when she cried earlier. But now, her eyelids were swollen and her eyes were red. The scene last night was not intense, so she would not cry like this. Fan Jin washed her face in the lounge and applied a facial mask to make herself more awake and less swollen. The assistant who went out to inquire about the news soon returned. The vice president of the Fran Group had recently arrived in Beijing, and he had already attracted the attention of many people. In addition, the Fran Group's new company was established in China, and there were many people trying to curry favor with them. Furthermore, the Fran Group's main business was more beneficial for celebrities. Many people wanted to know the vice president's contact information, and it was impossible for Fan Jin's assistant to get it on his own. But when he heard that Fan Jin needed it, he quickly got the contact information. Of course, it was the assistant's. Whether or not the person in question answered the phone was another matter altogether. The assistant passed the phone to Fan Jin and said embarrassedly, "Sister Fan Jin, this is the phone number of the vice president's assistant." Fan Jin nodded her head, but when she thought of that man, her eyes darkened. In the end, under the expectant and curious gaze of the assistant, she dialed the number. Although it was early in the morning, the vice president's assistant was already on standby. It was a mature man's voice. "Hello, who is this?" Chapter 148. Fan Jin was in a daze for a moment before she asked, "Is Jiang Chunji here?" The other party was silent for a moment before replying, "Sorry, I think you've got the wrong number. There's no Mr. Jiang Chunji here." Fan Jin immediately reacted, "It's Ji Nuo. Sorry, I'm Fan Jin, a female celebrity. Pass the phone to your boss, he'll know." The other party had returned to China and was a Chinese citizen. He always used an English name, Ji Nuo. Even if he had a Chinese name, it shouldn't be known by others. The name that Fan Jin blurted out just now was probably not his real name. The assistant was extremely intelligent. He immediately guessed that something was wrong. Coincidentally, the boss had just gotten up and wasn't in a hurry. He said, "Please wait a moment." Then, he took the phone and went to find the vice president. The man was now staying in the presidential suite of the hotel. He had just woken up and was tying his tie in front of the dressing mirror. He had a handsome face and sharp eyebrows. His whole body exuded the aura of a strategist that had been trained in business. He was a bright and energetic man. No wonder people said that he was the absolute center of attention. Just his face alone was enough to make a name for himself in the entertainment industry. The assistant came in with the phone. He covered the phone and reported, "Boss, a lady called Fan Jin is looking for you. She seems to have called your Chinese name wrongly. She said that you're Jiang Chunji. The man's sharp eyes instantly turned to the assistant. Because the assistant was used to his aura, he acted normal and didn't show a trace of fear. Soon, a complicated look appeared in the man's eyes. After 3 seconds, he calmly and coldly said, "She's got the wrong person." It was obvious that he wasn't going to answer the phone. The assistant nodded and immediately replied, "Sorry, Miss Fan, our boss is busy right now, you don't have to lie to me." Fan Jin had just cried, so she calmed down. "Tell him that if he doesn't answer the phone, the news of his fake death will spread throughout the country tomorrow. I know that the Fran Group's new company and store have just opened in China. A lot of things are still in progress. You don't want more problems to arise at this juncture, right?" Yes, she was threatening him. This man had caused her so much pain for so many years. Now that she knew that he was still alive, it was impossible to say that she wasn't resentful. Most of it was her own helplessness and sadness. She only wanted an answer. Once she knew the answer, whether it was resentment or difficulties, she would have to hear it from him personally. The assistant told the boss everything that he had said. The man directly sank his face, reached out to take the assistant's mobile phone, and said in a rare tone of irritation, "I said, you have the wrong number." The assistant was a little surprised. After being by this boss side for so long, he had always been calm, reserved, and powerful. There was almost never a moment when he was not calm. And at this moment, an inexplicable phone call easily forced his anxious mood. He knew better than to pay attention to these things. He opened the door and left. Some secrets were not suitable for outsiders to know. "If I really called the wrong number, you wouldn't have picked up the call." Fan Jin heard a voice that was different from what she remembered, but she was more convinced. When he disappeared, he was still young. At that time, even his voice hadn't changed. He always had the unpleasant voice of a male duck. Now, it had become so magnetic and charming. Just this voice alone was enough to make people fall into a trance. Chapter 149. The other party didn't say anything. Fan Jin could still hear the breathing on the other side of the phone, and it was a little messy. She knew that the other party wasn't as calm as he seemed. The little assistant squatted at the side to reduce her presence. She wanted to hear the gossip and hoped that Fan Jin didn't know that she was still there. At this time, Fan Jin was immersed in the past. Her face looked like she was about to cry. "What can my threat do to you? I'm just a small celebrity, and you're the vice president of the Fran Group. You can ban me with just one sentence. I said that you faked your death, and there's no evidence. It's useless against you, but you still accepted it. You accepted it, and it disappointed me even more. You've disappointed me." He accepted it, which meant that he hadn't forgotten it after so many years. He was Jiang Chunji. Her voice was full of sadness and resentment, and it made people's hearts tighten. The breathing on the other side of the phone was a little messy, but he quickly calmed down and didn't say a word. Fan Jin had just cried, and now that she had calmed down, she was easily aroused. "Why did you fake your death to lie to me? I only want to hear this answer today. If it's because of your identity, you should have told me when you came back, and I wouldn't have looked for you. Do you think I wouldn't let you go?" He was now the vice president of an international consortium, and his identity was mysterious. How could a small star like Fan Jin be connected to him? But he didn't say anything. Was he afraid that Fan Jin would pester him? Yes, Fan Jin was born in an orphanage, and their identities were worlds apart. But Fan Jin was definitely not a woman who would be blinded by money. Because Jiang Chunji didn't say anything, she was sad and desperate for so many years, and she almost lost her life. Now, this man remembered everything, but he didn't come back to look for her. Even if he just sent a message saying that it was a last resort, Fan Jin would never have anything to do with him. But he didn't say anything. His breathing seemed to be getting faster. Fan Jin didn't wait for him to answer, and asked with a sobbing voice, "Let me ask you, why can't you even bear to send me a message? Do you know what happened to me all these years?" After a long while, the other party said in a hoarse voice, "I know." 3 words, but Fan Jin fell into a bottomless abyss. He knew everything, But he chose to ignore it. He watched Fan Jin struggle and even watched her commit suicide. Fan Jin, who was about to cry, suddenly froze. She had acted for so many years that she could control her emotions easily. Even if she wanted to cry, she pinched her own leg to calm herself down. "I understand." After saying this, Fan Jin hung up the phone. He stared straight ahead like a soulless puppet. Fan Jin's assistant trembled. She was afraid that Fan Jin would take things too hard, so she quickly said, "Sister Fan Jin, don't think too much about it, it happened so long ago. Let's just pretend it never happened, okay?" The other party was the high and mighty Vice President Fu Lan. She knew that although Fan Jin had a decent status in the entertainment industry, she was nothing compared to someone like Fu Lan. Fan Jin's face remained expressionless as he understood the fortune-teller's words. He had lied to her. It was not worth crying over such a person. It was indeed not worth it. After a long time, she suddenly laughed again. At first, it was a laugh, but in the end, her laughter stopped, and her tears fell like beads that could not be controlled. Because no matter what kind of difficulties he had, it couldn't beat him not saying anything. Chapter 150. Xiao Jin did not expect Fan Jin to be so fast. In the afternoon, something big happened in the entertainment industry and Weibo exploded. Fan Jin, who was at the peak of her career, announced that she would never step into the entertainment industry again. She would donate half of her lifetime earnings to charity and leave the rest for the rest of her life. She personally posted on Weibo and was very determined that she would never return to the entertainment industry in any way. After finishing all her work, she would go on an indefinite break. It was quite sudden, and it was quite confusing. No one knew what happened to Fan Jin. To be fair, Fan Jin was only 30 years old. She looked like she had already passed her best years, but in reality, the entertainment industry was in a state where there was a shortage of new and old stars. At 30 years old, she was considered a big star with the best prospects. With the title of Best Actress and national popularity, even if she wasn't as popular as the A-list stars, she definitely earned a lot of money. If she took good care of herself, she would look like she was in her 20s. Someone like her would be able to survive for a few more years in the entertainment industry. Why did she quit the entertainment industry so suddenly? She did not get attacked. The public was confused, the fans were even more confused, and even the management company was confused. Why did she want to quit the entertainment industry when she was doing so well? However, she didn't talk about what had happened in the morning, and her assistant didn't dare to talk about it either. She simply told her agent, "I once ruined my life for the wrong person. Now, I just want to see the best scenery in the world. The entertainment industry isn't what I want. It's just a place where I can make money. Now that I've made enough, I want to do what I like." Her manager had been with her for more than 10 years and knew that Fan Jin's journey had not been easy. Although she had mixed feelings, there was nothing she could do. Although the company was angry, the contract that Fan Jin signed was not too bad. She was only taking a break and did not break the contract. With some connections, the company could only choose to terminate the contract peacefully. Her tone was firm and there was no sign of regret. No one would know that it was because of the fortune-telling that morning. Xiao Jin saw Fan Jin's news in school and saw a list by the netizens. With Fan Jin's current net worth, she could earn 10 million for a single endorsement and 18 million for a single film she acted in. It was a pity that she was about to leave the entertainment industry. It was a tragedy caused by 600 yuan. However, her life was destined to be like this. Xiao Jin was not surprised that she wanted to withdraw. More importantly, she saw that Fan Jin had donated half of her assets. She thought for a moment and took the initiative to send a message to Fan Jin. "Today, I saw that you donated half of it to charity. This is a great merit. I can give you a hint." At this time, Fan Jin must be very busy because she suddenly had too many things to do on Weibo. Unexpectedly, Fan Jin replied very quickly. "Anonymous buyer XX, Master, do you have any tips for me? Today, you will have happiness." Fan Jin saw this sentence in the midst of her busy schedule. After a long while, she suddenly smiled. It seemed like nothing had been said, but if the master said that she had happiness, then it might really be true. Although she was depressed and sad now, if she could be happy in the future, it seemed that quitting the entertainment industry might not be a bad thing. Xiao Jin wasn't lying. She would at least find her own happiness in the future, which could be considered as a consolation for her life. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.